Imagine standing at the edge of the unknown, where the shadows of ancient stones stretch across time, their secrets locked away for millennia. For centuries, we've believed that the dawn of civilization was as we know it, written in the pages of history, carved into the ruins of empires. But what if we've been wrong? What if structures far older, more advanced, and far more mysterious than anything we've uncovered wait quietly beneath our feet, waiting to be discovered? In the next 3 hours, we'll unravel the enigma of prehistoric structures that defy everything we thought we knew about our past. What knowledge have we lost? And how far back do the roots of human ingenuity truly go? Stay with us. The answers are waiting, hidden just beyond our reach. At the heart of Mexico's arid northern landscape, far from the bustling tourist paths, lies a place that seems almost untouched by time. La Quemada, an ancient ruin hidden deep within the deserts of Zacatecas, stands as a silent testament to a forgotten civilization. Its stone walls, weathered by centuries of wind and sun, are all that remain of a once thriving city. Yet the mysteries surrounding this site are as vast as the desert itself. The first thing one notices upon arriving is the harsh beauty of the surroundings. Jagged cliffs rise up against the horizon, while the valley below is punctuated by the remnants of stone platforms, walls, and terracing. The sun beats down relentlessly, casting long shadows that dance over the ruins. There's an undeniable sense of isolation, as though the past itself is reluctant to reveal its secrets. La Quemada is thought to have been established sometime around 400 AD, flourishing as a significant center in pre-Columbian Mexico. Its name, which translates to the burnt place, likely refers to the fire that ravaged the area, a cataclysmic event that may have been both symbolic and literal. The remnants of large ceremonial structures, including a pyramid and impressive fortifications, indicate that this place once held considerable importance. Scholars believe La Quemada was a center for trade, culture, and possibly religious ceremonies, yet very little is known about the people who lived here, and even less about their fate. While the mainstream historical narrative tells of the city's rise and eventual decline, perhaps due to invasion or internal strife, there are elements at La Quemada that don't easily fit into conventional explanations. Take, for example, the layout of the site. Unlike other Mesoamerican cities, La Quemada's design appears almost otherworldly in its precision. The central plaza, flanked by towering stone walls, is aligned with striking accuracy to celestial bodies, an architectural feature that suggests a level of astronomical knowledge that seems out of place for such a distant time. Did the people of La Quemada possess advanced understanding of the stars, or is it possible that they were influenced by a lost, more sophisticated civilization? And then there's the enigmatic burnt palace. Its charred remains are a haunting reminder of the violence that might have destroyed the city, yet no one can definitively explain how the fire started. Was it a natural disaster, or could it have been the result of a violent conflict? Some speculate that the fire could have been a ritualistic event, symbolizing the death of an era or the transformation of a culture. Others wonder whether it could have been a deliberate act of destruction, an attempt to erase a once great civilization from memory. Intriguingly, there are also traces of unusual artifacts found in La Quemada's ruins. Unlike most Mesoamerican artifacts, which are typically crafted from local materials, some of the objects discovered here seem to have come from distant regions. There are fragments of pottery from Oaxaca and jewelry made of jade that could have only been sourced from faraway jungles. How did these items end up in La Quemada? And what might they say about the city's connections to other ancient cultures? Was La Quemada simply a stop along a vast trade network? Or could there have been deeper, more mysterious ties to other unknown peoples? As with many ancient ruins, La Quemada also holds the allure of unexplained structures. The pyramid that stands at the heart of the site, though largely incomplete, is not aligned with the typical architectural norms of the time. Its slanted sides suggest a possible connection to other pyramid-building cultures, but its proportions and materials don't quite match those found elsewhere in Mesoamerica. Was this a regional variation, or could it represent an entirely different architectural tradition? And if so, why hasn't it been more widely recognized or studied? As archaeologists continue to sift through the rubble of La Quemada, each new discovery adds to the mystery, yet none offer a definitive answer to the questions that linger in the air like the desert dust. The civilization that once inhabited this place may be long gone, but the legacy they left behind remains, fragmented and enigmatic, like pieces of a puzzle that may never fully fit together. What knowledge did they possess, and what caused their sudden disappearance? Did their understanding of the cosmos, their trade networks, and their rituals go beyond what we can comprehend today? La Quemada stands as a silent reminder that, sometimes, the more we uncover, the deeper the questions become. And as the sun sets over the ruins, one can't help but wonder what else lies buried beneath the sands, waiting to be uncovered. As the sun sets over the plains of central Greece, a soft mist begins to roll across the hillsides, and the ancient ruins of Sesklo emerge like forgotten fragments of a distant past. Here, in a quiet corner of Thessaly, lies one of the oldest and most enigmatic settlements of the Aegean world, a place that seems, at first glance, almost too ancient to be real. Yet beneath its layers of earth and time, Sesklo's mysteries remain stubbornly intact. Sesklo, as it is known today, is far more than a simple archaeological site. It is a window into the dawn of European civilization, a settlement that predates even the rise of the great Minoan and Mycenaean cultures. Estimated to have been established around 6000 BC, the settlement is part of a broader Neolithic culture that flourished in this region long before the advent of written language or monumental architecture. Its inhabitants were among the first to cultivate the land, breed livestock, and create pottery, skills that would shape the future of Europe itself. Unlike the grand ruins of later civilizations, Sesklo is quiet and humble in appearance. Its structures, simple circular houses made of mud brick and wood, are arranged in clusters across the rolling hills. The remains of ancient walls still rise from the earth, their outlines softened by time, as though the settlement has been gently pulled back into the embrace of nature. The landscape itself seems unchanged, the surrounding fields and olive groves carrying a whisper of continuity from millennia ago. Yet, for all its seeming tranquility, Sesklo presents a mystery that has long intrigued archaeologists. Despite the simplicity of its buildings, there is evidence here of something much more advanced than might be expected from a settlement of its time. One of the most striking features of Sesklo is the apparent sophistication of its layout. The houses, though small, appear to have been carefully planned, arranged in a way that suggests a knowledge of spatial organization not typically associated with early Neolithic communities. Could this settlement have been a center of something more complex, perhaps an early form of urban planning, or even a social structure that was more hierarchical than we realize? Another fascinating aspect of Sesklo is its pottery. Unlike the crude utilitarian vessels found in many early settlements, the ceramics of Sesklo are of an astonishing quality. Crafted with precision and often decorated with intricate patterns, these pots reveal a level of artistry and skill that seems out of place for a society still in the early stages of agricultural life. Some researchers have even suggested that the pottery may have had symbolic or ritualistic significance, perhaps tied to the settlement's spiritual practices or its understanding of the world around them. Was pottery merely a functional craft, or was it something more? A vessel for belief, a medium for the unseen? Perhaps most puzzling of all is the discovery of large, circular platforms or pavements scattered throughout the settlement. These structures are unlike any other found in Neolithic settlements of the region, and their purpose remains a subject of much debate. Some believe they may have been used for communal activities, gatherings, rituals, or social events. Others suggest that they could have served as some form of early astronomical observatory, aligning with certain celestial events or the cycles of the moon and stars. The question remains, were these platforms simply architectural features, or were they expressions of a more complex understanding of the cosmos, one that might challenge the traditional narrative of early human knowledge? And yet, there are still darker questions lurking around the edges of Sesklo's mysteries. Though the settlement appears to have been abandoned by around 3700 BC, no clear explanation exists for why this might have happened. Some suggest environmental factors, such as climate change or a sudden shift in resources, could have driven the people of Sesklo to move on. Others believe that it may have been the result of internal social upheaval or even conflict with neighboring tribes. But there are whispers in the archaeological community of something more elusive, a sudden, almost inexplicable collapse of the society, as though some external force, or perhaps an unknown disaster, brought the settlement's prosperity to an abrupt and tragic end. The transition from the Neolithic to the Bronze Age in Greece was a time of profound change, marked by the rise of new technologies, new social structures, and new beliefs. It is during this period that many of the first cities began to emerge, cities that would lay the foundations for the great civilizations of the ancient Mediterranean. But Sesklo, with its enigmatic disappearance and its tantalizing hints of something more advanced than its time, raises a troubling question. How much of that early knowledge was lost, obscured, or deliberately forgotten as the years passed? Were the inhabitants of Sesklo the bearers of some ancient wisdom that might have been lost to the sands of time, swallowed by the tides of history? And what of the objects discovered in the ruins? Among the tools, the pottery, and the remains of daily life, there are curious items that suggest Sesklo was more than just an agricultural village. Some scholars have pointed to small, mysterious figurines, stone or clay representations of human and animal forms that are too intricate to have been mere decorations. These figures may represent deities or ancestral spirits, but some believe they could also hold deeper symbolic meanings, markers of a belief system or a worldview that was far more complex than we have yet understood. Sesklo, like so many ancient sites, challenges us to look beyond what is immediately visible. Its simple earth-bound structures may appear modest, but the settlement holds within it the echoes of an extraordinary, yet largely forgotten, history. Were its inhabitants simply the precursors to the great civilizations of the Aegean, or did they possess knowledge, skills, or beliefs that have yet to be fully recognized? As we continue to peel back the layers of history, we are left to wonder, how many more such settlements lie hidden, waiting to challenge our understanding of the ancient world? How many mysteries are still locked beneath the soil of places like Sesklo, ready to be uncovered when the time is right? In the South Pacific, on the quiet island of Tonga, there stands a structure that defies time, location, and conventional understanding. The Ha'amanga, a Maui Trilithon, 3 massive stone pillars rising in perfect alignment, is an architectural enigma, one that has captivated historians, archaeologists, and explorers for centuries. While its imposing presence is undeniable, so too is the mystery that surrounds it. The Ha'amanga, a Maui Trilithon, often referred to as the Stonehenge of the Pacific, is a prehistoric monument that lies at the heart of Tonga's ancient capital, Mu'a. This towering structure, made of coral limestone, stands in stark contrast to its surroundings. The 3 vertical stones, each weighing several tons, are crowned by a massive lintel that stretches across them, creating an imposing doorway. The sheer scale of the stones is awe-inspiring, yet they are so perfectly aligned that it feels as though they were purposefully positioned by a civilization far more advanced than one might expect from the islands of the South Pacific. The monument's name, Ha'amonga a Maui, translates to the Burden of Maui, and its connection to the legendary Polynesian demigod Maui only deepens the mystery. According to Tongan oral tradition, Maui, known for his immense strength and supernatural feats, is said to have built the Trilithon to prove his might, carrying the massive stones across the sea from a distant land. The story, though deeply ingrained in Tongan culture, raises the question, to what extent are the legends grounded in historical truth? Was Maui an actual figure, or does his tale symbolize something much deeper about the ancient people of Tonga? The structure itself is an impressive feat of engineering. The stones are so large that their placement seems almost impossible, especially considering the lack of advanced technology or tools in the region at the time. How were these stones quarried, transported, and set in place? The fact that they were placed with such precision, aligning with celestial events like the solstices, raises more questions than answers. Was the Ha'amonga, a Maui Trilithon, used as an astronomical marker, like the famous megalithic sites of Europe, or did it have another function entirely? Some scholars suggest it could have been a kind of calendar, tracking the movement of the stars or the changing of seasons. Others believe it may have had ceremonial or religious significance, serving as a gateway to the divine or a monument to the power of the king. But even the most widely accepted theories surrounding the Trilithon seem to leave more unanswered questions. The structure is thought to date back to around 1200 AD, though the precise timeline is uncertain. The exact identity of the people who built it is also unclear. The Tongan people themselves have oral histories that suggest the site was constructed by a dynasty of kings, possibly even the legendary Tui Tonga dynasty, who ruled the islands for centuries. Yet, the tools and techniques used to create the Ha'amonga, a Maui Trilithon, do not match what we would expect from the era. Could the people of ancient Tonga have had access to lost or unknown technologies? Was there an advanced maritime culture that had the ability to travel vast distances, perhaps even before the Polynesians traditionally migrated? Theories about ancient seafaring civilizations that predate our understanding of exploration are not new, and the presence of such monumental structures in isolated locations like Tonga only adds fuel to these speculative ideas. There are also theories about the materials used to construct the Trilithon that add to its enigma. The stone used to build the Ha'amonga, a Maui Trilithon, is coral limestone, a material that would not have been native to the area in such quantities. Some suggest that the stones were brought from other parts of Tonga, or perhaps even from distant islands, a feat that would have required sophisticated seafaring knowledge and tools. How did these early Polynesians have the knowledge to quarry and transport such massive stones across the open ocean? Was this a highly specialized society, perhaps with knowledge passed down through generations? Or was there some greater force or influence at work? Another fascinating aspect of the Ha'amonga a Maui Trilithon is the relationship between the structure and the surrounding landscape. The site is located near the ancient capital of Mua, a region rich in archaeological sites, including burial mounds, royal tombs, and ancient villages. Some researchers have suggested that the Trilithon may have been part of a larger ceremonial complex, one that played a key role in Tongan culture. Its strategic location, close to the royal tombs, hints at its possible use as a marker of power or a symbol of authority, perhaps serving as a gateway between the living and the gods. While many of the ideas surrounding the Ha'amonga, a Maui Trilithon, are rooted in Tongan traditions and historical speculation, there are still those who consider more fringe theories. Some believe that the monument could be much older than traditionally thought, perhaps predating even the Polynesian settlers of the islands. Could the Trilithon have been constructed by an unknown civilization that arrived in the Pacific long before the Polynesians? If so, what knowledge did they possess, and where did they come from? Could the structure have been influenced by ancient seafaring cultures from distant parts of the world, such as Southeast Asia or even South America? Though these ideas are speculative and controversial, they raise important questions about the true extent of ancient knowledge and the potential connections between distant civilizations. Despite the many theories and speculations surrounding Ha'amanga a Maui, one thing is certain: the structure remains one of the greatest mysteries of the South Pacific. Its size, precision, and alignment with celestial events suggest a level of understanding and craftsmanship that challenges our perception of ancient societies. The stories of Maui's strength and the mythical origins of the monument only add to its allure, leaving us to wonder, was the Ha'amanga a Maui Trilithon the work of a civilization far more advanced than we know? Or does it represent a much deeper connection between the Earth, the stars, and the ancient people of Tonga? As we continue to peel back the layers of this ancient enigma, we are left to wonder, what else might lie hidden beneath the surface of these remote islands? What other discoveries are waiting to be uncovered, waiting to reveal the secrets of a long-lost past that still calls to us across the centuries? On the edge of a rugged cliff, where the relentless winds of the Atlantic crash against Ireland's western coast, stands one of the most breathtaking and enigmatic ancient structures in Europe, Dun Aengus. Perched high above the waters of the Aran Islands, this prehistoric fortification commands the landscape with its towering stone walls, silent and unmoving, as if guarding secrets long buried in the mists of time. Dun Aengus, located on Inishmore, the largest of the Aran Islands, is an ancient ring fort, a type of structure found scattered across Ireland, but few with such dramatic positioning. Its sheer verticality, built at the edge of a 300-foot drop to the sea below, gives it a sense of defiance, as though it were built not just to withstand time, but to challenge the forces of nature itself. The fort's dry stone walls, stacked in an almost perfect circular shape, are still largely intact, a testament to the skill of its builders. Within the ring, a single stone entrance leads to the heart of the fort, where an air of quiet reverence pervades. Standing there, gazing out at the endless horizon, one can't help but wonder, who were the people who constructed this remarkable site, and why did they choose such a precarious location? Archaeologists believe that Dun Aengus dates back to the late Bronze Age or early Iron Age, around 1500 BC to 500 BC, though some estimates push its origins even further back. Its circular walls, which range in height from 12 to 20 feet, form an impressive defense, once encircling a central area where homes and communal spaces would have stood. There are no records or written accounts from the time to reveal exactly who built it, but it is believed to have been constructed by a Celtic tribe, possibly the pre-Christian Gaels, whose presence in Ireland is documented in later centuries. The fort likely served as a fortified settlement, a place of refuge from outside threats, or perhaps as a ceremonial center of some importance to its builders. The most striking aspect of Dun Aengus, however, is not just its age or its grand scale, it's the sense of mystery that still surrounds its purpose. Why was it built on such a precarious cliffside, exposed to the elements and vulnerable to the ravages of time? The location alone raises questions. Was it simply a strategic military site, or could it have been something more? Some have speculated that the fort was not just a place of defense, but also a symbolic structure, an offering to the sea or the gods, meant to demonstrate the builder's mastery over both the land and the water. Was it, in some way, a place to commune with forces beyond the mortal realm? Within the ring itself, the stone walls are broken up by several entrances, some of which lead to steep drops over the cliff's edge, adding an additional layer of mystery to the design. Why were these openings included in the structure? Were they meant as strategic features for defense, allowing the defenders to control access to the fort from all sides? Or could they serve a more symbolic function, perhaps representing a connection to the spiritual world, or to the dangerous, unpredictable sea below? The cliffside itself is so imposing that the fort's sheer location invites speculation that it may have had an astrological or ritualistic significance, with its orientation possibly tied to celestial events or cycles. The fort's location also raises another question. How did the builders manage to transport and move the massive stones needed for its construction? The surrounding landscape offers little in terms of easily accessible stone quarries. Could the stones have been brought from farther inland or from other parts of the island, transported across treacherous terrain and then carefully assembled in such a location? The scale and precision of the construction imply that the builders had an advanced understanding of engineering, and yet no written records exist to tell us exactly how they achieved it. What knowledge did they possess that allowed them to construct a fortification capable of enduring the harshest of conditions? The most mysterious feature of Dun Aengus, however, is the structure's relationship with the surrounding environment. The fort, perched at the edge of the world, overlooks the vast and turbulent Atlantic Ocean, an unforgiving stretch of water that separates Ireland from distant lands. Was the fort's positioning merely a strategic advantage for defense, or did it serve a deeper, more spiritual purpose? Many researchers point to the ancient Celts' reverence for the natural world, their connection to the land, the sea, and the heavens. Could Dun Aengus have been a place of ritual, where the forces of nature were invoked, worshipped, or appeased? The Celts were known for their belief in the other world, a realm of spirits and gods that was believed to be connected to the natural world in profound and mysterious ways. The placement of Dun Aengus at the intersection of land, sea, and sky may have reflected this worldview, serving as a physical manifestation of their cosmology. Beyond its possible symbolic or spiritual importance, there are also those who speculate about the role of Dun Aengus in the broader context of ancient Irish settlements. Could it have been part of a larger network of similar sites, functioning as a key center for trade, social interaction, or even political power? The fort's size and strategic location suggest that it could have been an important hub in the ancient world, potentially drawing visitors or travelers from other regions of Ireland or beyond. Yet, the relative isolation of Inishmore, set apart from the more accessible areas of Ireland, also raises the possibility that it was meant to be hidden, a place of refuge for a people who valued their privacy or their distance from the outside world. Though much of Dun Aengus remains open to interpretation, one thing is certain: it is a place that has stood the test of time, weathering centuries of storms and upheavals. Its stone walls remain, silent and unyielding, facing both the forces of nature and the passage of history. The structure offers no easy answers, no clear narrative. Its purpose and origins are lost to the ages, leaving us to wonder, was Dun Aengus merely a fortress, a seat of power? Or was it a place of spiritual significance, a sacred space where the living and the divine met? As we stand before the ancient stones of Dun Aengus, gazing out over the wild Atlantic, we are left with more questions than answers. What did the builders of this remarkable fort know of the world, of the forces of nature, and of the cosmos? And perhaps most importantly, what stories, what truths, are still waiting to be uncovered beneath the stones of this ancient, enigmatic place? The mystery endures, as does the enduring silence of Dun Aengus, standing watch over the sea, guarding its secrets for those willing to seek them out. In the rugged hills of the Orashtia Mountains, in the heart of Romania, lies an ancient site that few outside the realm of archaeology and history are familiar with, but those who know it recognize it as a place of profound mystery. The ruins of Sarmizegetusa, Regia, once the capital of the Dacian kingdom, stand today as a silent, weathered testament to a civilization long since disappeared. But what exactly was this place, and why, after centuries, do its secrets remain locked away? The first impression one gets upon reaching Sarmizegetusa Regia is one of quiet awe. Perched atop a plateau at an altitude of over 1,000 meters, the site overlooks the surrounding forested valleys. The ancient stone walls, though crumbled in parts, still retain an air of majesty, stretching across the landscape in intricate patterns. At the heart of the ruins lies a collection of concentric stone circles, one of the most striking features of the site. These structures, comprised of large stone slabs and carefully arranged in geometric shapes, are thought to have been part of a ceremonial center, possibly related to astronomical observations or religious rites. Sarmizegetusa Regia was once the political and spiritual center of the Dacian people, the ancestors of the modern Romanians, and it stood as the most powerful city in Dacia until the Roman conquest in 106 AD. The Dacians, a fierce and sophisticated tribe, built a kingdom that rivaled the Romans in many ways. The strategic location of their capital in the mountains of present-day Romania made it difficult to reach by invaders, while its proximity to rich mineral resources, especially gold, made it an invaluable prize for the Romans. In fact, it was the wealth of Dacia that lured Emperor Trajan to launch a series of brutal campaigns to conquer the kingdom, forever altering the course of its history. But despite its importance, the full nature and purpose of Sarmizegetusa Regia remain elusive. The Dacians left no written records, and so much of what we know about them comes from Roman accounts, which were often written from the perspective of conquerors. What did the Dacians believe in? What kind of society did they construct? These are questions that remain unanswered. And perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Sarmizegetusa Regia is not just what it is, but what it might have been. Because even today, we are left with more questions than answers. The stone circles are the first mystery. As with many ancient sites, their purpose has been the subject of much speculation. Mainstream archaeology suggests that these circles may have been used for ritualistic purposes, possibly related to Dacian religious practices. Some experts believe they were designed to align with celestial bodies, perhaps tracking the movements of the stars, the sun, or the moon. Their arrangement might indicate a sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, even predating some of the better-known astronomical monuments of the ancient world. Were the Dacians, then, early astronomers, their understanding of the cosmos so advanced that they could carve their knowledge into the stones? Or was there something more mysterious at play, something that we have yet to uncover? A closer look at the construction of Sarmizegetusa Regia raises more questions. The stones used to create the site are enormous, some weighing several tons. The precision with which these stones were cut and placed is extraordinary. Despite being made of sandstone, a material not native to the immediate area, the Dacians were able to transport and arrange these blocks with remarkable accuracy. How did they achieve this level of sophistication without the advanced tools or machinery we associate with later civilizations? And perhaps more perplexing, how did they move the stones across rugged terrain and through dense forests to the summit of the Orishtia Mountains? Some speculate that the Dacians had a level of engineering knowledge that we are only beginning to understand, while others suggest the possibility of lost technologies, perhaps even unknown methods of working with stone or controlling labor forces. In addition to the stone circles, the site is home to the remnants of various buildings and fortifications. The Dacians constructed massive walls, ramparts, and defensive towers, suggesting that Sarmizegetusa Regia was not only a center of religion and governance, but also a stronghold designed to withstand invasion. But the mystery deepens when one looks at the specific way these structures were constructed. Some of the fortifications appear to be built with a level of craftsmanship and precision that seems to defy the timeline of Dacian technology. Could there have been external influences on Dacian construction methods, or even collaboration with other ancient civilizations whose knowledge was passed down in secret? Perhaps one of the most intriguing aspects of Sarmizegetusa Regia is its relationship with the natural environment. The site is surrounded by dense forests, and there are those who suggest that the Dacians might have had a particular reverence for nature, incorporating it into their religious practices. Was the site designed with the natural landscape in mind, or was it built to blend seamlessly with the forested surroundings? Some researchers point to the fact that certain elements of the architecture align with particular natural features, such as distant mountain peaks or specific locations of sunrise and sunset. Could these alignments have had spiritual significance for the Dacians, connecting them to the divine through the natural world? And, intriguingly, what role did the mysterious sacred woods surrounding the site play in the spiritual life of the Dacians? Even the name of the site, Sarmizegetusa, remains a mystery. While it is widely thought to be derived from the ancient Dacian language, its exact meaning has not been deciphered. Some believe it could translate to the stronghold of the sacred hill, a fitting description for such a dramatic location. Yet, others propose that the name could be related to even deeper, more mysterious meanings, possibly involving forgotten Dacian myths or even influences from far-flung cultures that might have reached the shores of the Black Sea centuries before the rise of the Dacians. When we consider the fate of the Dacians, the mystery of Sarmizegetusa Regia becomes even more poignant. After the Roman conquest, the city was abandoned and eventually forgotten, its stones slowly reclaimed by nature. The ruins we see today are but a shadow of the once mighty capital that stood at the heart of Dacian civilization. What happened to the knowledge of this place and to the people who lived here? Did the Dacians leave behind any hidden records, encoded messages, or knowledge that might still lie beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered? Despite centuries of research, excavation, and speculation, the true purpose and meaning of Sarmizegetusa Regia remain unresolved. We may never fully understand the spiritual or intellectual legacy of the Dacians, but the ruins of this mysterious site continue to challenge our understanding of the ancient world. What secrets might still be hidden within its stone walls? And how much of Dacia's knowledge, its engineering, its religion, its cosmology, has been lost to time? High in the mist-covered mountains of northern Peru, concealed by dense cloud forests and towering peaks, lies a forgotten fortress that once stood at the center of a mysterious Andean civilization. Kuelap, often overshadowed by its more famous counterparts like Machu Picchu, is a site that quietly beckons the curious. For centuries, it remained hidden from the world, and even today, the true nature of this ancient stronghold remains shrouded in mystery. Kuelap is an imposing structure, perched on a ridge at an elevation of nearly 3,000 meters. The sheer scale of the site is overwhelming. Massive stone walls, some reaching heights of 20 meters, encircle a sprawling complex that covers over 6 hectares. From above, the fortress appears as a collection of terraced platforms, circular buildings, and winding passages, all expertly constructed from finely hewn limestone blocks. The precision with which these stones were placed is remarkable. Without mortar, the blocks fit together so tightly that even centuries of erosion have failed to loosen them. The strength of the walls suggests a place built to withstand the ravages of time and nature. The first question that comes to mind when approaching Kuelap is, who built this extraordinary fortress? The site is attributed to the Chachapoya, a little-known civilization that once thrived in the cloud forests of the eastern Andes. Known as the Warriors of the Clouds, the Chachapoya people were skilled farmers, artisans, and warriors with a deep knowledge of their environment. Their civilization is believed to have flourished between the 6th and 16th centuries, but the reasons for their eventual decline remain unclear. What was Kuelap's role in their society? Was it a military stronghold, a ceremonial center, or perhaps something else entirely? The answer to these questions has been elusive, as much of the Chachapoya's history remains hidden from the modern world. While the Chachapoya left behind stunning examples of architecture and art, they did not leave written records. Their oral traditions, passed down through generations, provide glimpses into their culture but often mix myth with history, making it difficult to separate fact from legend. The purpose of Kuelap, as the Chachapoya's greatest architectural achievement, is still a subject of intense debate. One of the most striking features of Kuelap is its sheer size and defensive nature. The fortress is located on a mountain peak, with commanding views of the surrounding valleys and mountains. The surrounding stone walls, which appear to have once been part of a larger defensive complex, suggest that Kuelap was built not only to house its inhabitants, but also to protect them. Was Kuelap designed to withstand external threats, such as invasion or raids by neighboring tribes? Or was it primarily intended as a retreat, a sacred place removed from the conflict of the outside world? Inside the walls, the layout is equally mysterious. The site contains more than 400 structures, many of them circular, with thick stone walls. Some researchers believe that the circular buildings were used for residential purposes, while others argue that they were ceremonial spaces, perhaps for religious rituals or community gatherings. The structures are arranged in a way that hints at a highly organized society, but the specific function of each building remains unclear. Could Kuelap have been a religious or political center, a place where the leaders of the Chachapoya held court and performed rituals? Or was it something more, an early example of a cultural and political hub that had connections to the broader Andean world? Even the presence of hundreds of human-shaped stone sculptures within the fortress raises more questions. These Chachapoya sculptures, as they are often called, depict anthropomorphic figures, some with distinct features that suggest a complex belief system or pantheon of gods. Were these sculptures part of a religious or funerary practice? Were they representations of ancestors or deities? The precise meaning of these figures remains uncertain, but they point to a society with rich spiritual beliefs that we may never fully understand. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Kuelap is the mystery of its abandonment. Sometime in the 16th century, the fortress was abandoned. By the time the Spanish arrived in the region, the Chachapoya had already retreated to other areas, and Kuelap was left to the elements. Did the Chachapoya leave willingly, driven by internal conflict, or were they forced out by the expanding Inca Empire, which had absorbed much of the Andean region at the time? There are theories suggesting that the Inca may have invaded and taken control of the region, displacing the Chachapoya and forcing them to abandon their once great stronghold. However, there is no definitive evidence to support this idea, and the true cause of the Chachapoya's disappearance remains one of the great mysteries of the Andean world. The timing of the fortress's abandonment raises additional questions. Kuelap, once a thriving center, was left largely untouched for centuries. By the time it was rediscovered in the 19th century, the site had become little more than a shadow of its former self, with the jungle slowly reclaiming its stone walls. Yet, despite being hidden in plain sight for so long, Kuelap remained a mystery to outsiders for generations. Why was it forgotten for so long? Were there other sites like it, hidden in the dense forests of the region, waiting to be uncovered? And if so, what knowledge lies buried beneath the earth, waiting to be discovered? Even as researchers continue to study Kuelap, new questions arise. Was the fortress part of a larger network of Chachapoya sites, connected by roads or trade routes that we have yet to uncover? Could the Chachapoya have had knowledge or cultural ties to other ancient Andean civilizations, such as the Moche or Nazca? Some have even suggested that there could be connections between the Chachapoya and the mysterious people who built the Nazca lines, thousands of kilometers away. Could these far-flung cultures have shared ideas, beliefs, or technologies that were passed down through secretive means? The more we learn about Kuelap, the more questions emerge. Was it a stronghold, a center of worship, or something else entirely? And what happened to the Chachapoya people after they left their mountain fortress behind? How much of their culture, their knowledge, and their achievements have been lost to time? As we continue to explore the ruins of Kuelap, it becomes clear that much of its story remains untold. The fortress stands as a silent sentinel, its stone walls still holding secrets that we may never fully uncover. But as with all ancient sites, the unanswered questions invite us to wonder. What more could Kuelap reveal if we only had the key to unlock its mysteries? Perhaps, deep in the heart of the Andes, hidden in the shadows of the past, the true story of the Chachapoya and their enigmatic fortress still awaits discovery. Amid the windswept plains of the Scottish Highlands, nestled just a few miles from the modern city of Inverness, lies a place that seems untouched by time. The Balnuaran of Clava, a collection of ancient burial cairns and stone circles, stands as a haunting reminder of a long-lost world. With its weathered stones and cryptic arrangements, it invites a quiet contemplation of the past, one filled with unanswered questions and lingering mysteries. The site itself is deceptively simple in appearance. The Balnuaran of Clava consists of a series of 3 large cairns, each surrounded by a circle of standing stones. The cairns, constructed of large round boulders, were once elaborate burial mounds, designed to house the remains of the dead. The most impressive of these is Cairn 1, which measures nearly 12 meters in diameter and is encircled by a ring of 19 standing stones. The sheer scale and effort involved in the construction of these mounds suggest a deep cultural reverence for the deceased, a belief in the significance of the afterlife. But what exactly did the people who built this site believe? Dating back to the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age, approximately 4,000 years ago, the Balnuaran of Clava is part of a broader cluster of burial sites across the highlands, known as the Clava Cairns. While these cairns and circles are clearly related to funerary practices, their precise function remains enigmatic. Archaeologists agree that they likely served as places of ritual, marking the final resting places of high-ranking individuals or families. But beyond this basic understanding, the deeper meaning of the site, its connections to celestial events, its possible role in social or religious practices, remains an open question. One of the most intriguing features of the Balnuaran of Clava is its alignment with the movements of the sun. Cairn 1, for example, is oriented so that its entrance faces the direction of the winter solstice sunrise. This alignment suggests that the people who constructed the site possessed an advanced understanding of astronomy, using the celestial bodies to mark time and perhaps to guide their spiritual practices. The positioning of the cairn and the ritualistic importance of the sun points to the possibility that the site had a symbolic or ceremonial function beyond that of a mere burial ground. The alignment of the site with the solar calendar raises the question, was the Balnuaran of Clava more than just a burial place? Was it perhaps a site of pilgrimage, a sacred location where the living gathered to honor their ancestors and connect with the divine? The possibility that the people who built this site viewed the sun as a conduit to the afterlife, or as a powerful symbol of regeneration, adds another layer of mystery to the place. Yet, even as we explore these possibilities, there are still unanswered questions about the construction of the cairns themselves. The sheer effort involved in transporting the large stones, some of which weigh several tons, raises the question, how did these ancient people manage to transport and position these massive stones with such precision? The fact that no advanced tools were available at the time suggests that they relied on sophisticated techniques, possibly involving complex systems of levers, ramps, and manpower. But the real mystery lies in the site's construction methods. Was there a hidden knowledge, now lost to time, that allowed the builders to achieve such feats of engineering? Could there have been an unknown force or technology at work here? Or were the builders simply incredibly skilled in the art of stoneworking? Another fascinating aspect of the Balnuaran of Clava is its connection to other ancient sites in the region. The Cairns of Clava are part of a broader network of prehistoric monuments that include stone circles, standing stones, and other burial mounds scattered across the highlands. These sites are often linked by ancient pathways, and many of them share similar astronomical alignments. Is it possible that the people who built the Balnuaran of Clava were part of a larger, interconnected cultural network? Could these people have shared knowledge, rituals, and spiritual beliefs that extended across the whole of Britain and beyond? Some even speculate that the Clava Cairns might be part of an ancient, forgotten civilization, a society so advanced that its knowledge of astronomy and architecture has been lost to history. One of the most perplexing elements of the Balnuaran of Clava is its lack of clear historical context. While we know that the cairns were built around 2000 BCE, we have no written records from the time to explain their significance. The people who constructed them left no inscriptions, no carvings, no written stories to explain their motivations or their beliefs. What we are left with are only the stones, silent and enigmatic, waiting to tell their story. Some archaeologists have proposed that the Balnuaran of Clava was constructed by the ancestors of the Celts, while others suggest it may have been built by an even earlier pre-Celtic society. Could the site have been in use long before the Celts arrived in Scotland, potentially linking it to the mysterious pre-Celtic peoples who once inhabited the region? Could the rituals performed at the Balnuaran of Clava have been passed down through generations, evolving over time until they were incorporated into the practices of the Celts? There are also those who argue that the Balnuaran of Clava, like many ancient sites, may have had spiritual or symbolic connections to the land itself. The surrounding landscape, wild, untamed, and beautiful, could have influenced the way in which the site was designed and constructed. Was the site intended to harmonize with the natural world, to represent a cosmic order that mirrored the earth and sky? And what of the surrounding terrain? The location of the cairns, perched atop a gently sloping hill, offers an expansive view of the surrounding valleys and forests, a place where the horizon stretches out in all directions. Could this panoramic vista have had symbolic meaning to the builders, perhaps representing the gateway between the living and the dead, or the meeting point between the natural world and the divine? As we stand before the ancient stones of the Balnuaran of Clava, we are left with a sense of awe, but also of frustration. The answers we seek remain just out of reach, obscured by the veil of time. Was this site merely a burial ground, or did it serve a far greater purpose, one that connects us to the beliefs, rituals, and astronomical knowledge of a distant and long-forgotten people? And perhaps the most elusive question of all, what knowledge or wisdom did the builders of Balnuaran of Clava possess, and how much of it has been lost to history? The stones remain, and with them, the mystery endures. The Balnuaran of Clava continues to speak to us, not with words, but with the silent power of ancient architecture, challenging us to look beyond the obvious and to wonder what remains hidden, just out of sight, waiting to be discovered. Amid the arid hills of southeastern Spain, tucked away within the Almeria province, lies an ancient site that offers a glimpse into a long-forgotten world. The fortifications of Los Millares, one of the earliest and most significant Bronze Age settlements on the Iberian Peninsula, stand today as silent sentinels of a once thriving society. This sprawling site, with its intricate walls, gateways, and structures, has long captured the attention of archaeologists. Yet, despite decades of excavation, much about its builders and their way of life remains a profound mystery. Los Millares is not a single structure, but rather an entire fortified settlement, spread across a hilltop that commands sweeping views of the surrounding landscape. The site is characterized by massive stone walls, many of which are still intact, marking the boundaries of what must have been a highly organized and defensive community. The walls of the settlement, some nearly 3 meters thick, create an impressive perimeter, enclosing not only homes but also storage areas, communal spaces, and sacred places. Within this fortress, dozens of structures have been uncovered, many circular or rectangular in shape, and constructed from large stone blocks. The meticulous construction suggests a society with advanced knowledge of engineering and architecture, yet their precise methods of stone cutting and transport remain largely speculative. One of the most striking features of Los Millares is its fortifications. The sheer scale and complexity of the walls suggest that the people who lived here were not only skilled builders, but also deeply concerned with defense. The settlement is surrounded by a series of concentric walls, along with multiple entrances and narrow, winding passages designed to control access. Defensive towers were strategically placed at key points, adding to the site's formidable appearance. Was this an early example of military fortification, or did these walls serve a more symbolic function, perhaps to mark the boundaries between the sacred and the mundane? The presence of such elaborate defenses raises the question: what threats did the people of Los Millares face, and how did they perceive the world around them? The dating of Los Millares places it around 3000 to 2500 BCE, during the height of the European Bronze Age. This was a period of significant cultural development, yet relatively little is known about the people who built Los Millares, often referred to as the Millares culture. They left behind no written records, and their language remains a mystery. Most of what we know about them comes from their material culture, the pottery, tools, and the remains of their settlements. Yet even these artifacts provide only partial glimpses into their lives. The people of Los Millares were skilled artisans, known for their metalworking, especially in gold, copper, and bronze. Intricate gold jewelry has been found in the graves of some of the site's inhabitants, suggesting a society that not only engaged in the exchange of goods, but also valued personal adornment and the display of wealth. The craftsmanship of these pieces raises the question: did they possess advanced metallurgical techniques that were unique to their culture, or were they influenced by neighboring civilizations with whom they may have traded or interacted? Equally intriguing are the burial practices at Los Millares. The site contains several large communal tombs, often marked by stone tumuli or large circular structures. These tombs appear to have been reserved for the elite, suggesting that the society at Los Millares was hierarchical in nature. The presence of multiple burials within a single tomb raises the possibility that these tombs were not just burial sites, but also centers of ritual or ancestor worship. Could the tombs themselves have been viewed as sacred spaces, linked to the beliefs and cosmology of the Millares people? What role did death and the afterlife play in their society? And how did these beliefs shape the physical structures they left behind? The mystery of Los Millares deepens when we consider the site's location. The settlement is perched high on a hilltop, overlooking the surrounding plains and valleys. This positioning, while providing a natural vantage point for defense, also raises questions about the people's relationship to the land. Why was this site chosen? The rugged, inhospitable terrain might have posed significant challenges to early builders, yet the settlement's position suggests a deliberate choice. Was the location selected for its strategic value, its proximity to trade routes, or its symbolic importance? Could the settlement's location have been tied to celestial alignments or other spiritual beliefs? The choice of a hilltop for such an important site suggests that the Millares people saw themselves as having a close connection to the earth, to the forces of nature, or perhaps to the divine. The defensive walls and strategic placement of the site point to a society that lived in a world of competition and conflict. But what kind of conflicts did they face? The region of Los Millares was not isolated. It was part of a larger network of Bronze Age communities spread across the Iberian Peninsula. The people of Los Millares may have traded with other societies, exchanged goods and ideas, or engaged in cultural exchanges that influenced their art, technology, and rituals. But they may also have been involved in territorial disputes or warfare. Were the fortifications at Los Millares designed to protect the people from raiders, rival tribes, or even internal conflict? Or were they part of a broader strategy of consolidation, meant to control the land and resources of the surrounding region? There are also whispers of an even more complex narrative behind the construction of the walls. Some researchers suggest that the enormous effort and resources required to build such a large, fortified settlement may have been driven by a need for protection from a force much greater than a human enemy. Could the fortifications have served as a response to environmental challenges, floods, droughts, or other natural disasters that threatened the livelihood of the people? Or could there be a more speculative explanation? Was Los Millares built as a place to guard against forces that were not merely physical, but spiritual or cosmic in nature? As excavation continues at the site, more artifacts are uncovered, revealing glimpses into the daily lives of the people who lived at Los Millares. Yet, with each discovery, the questions only grow more profound. Was this site truly a fortress? Or was it a complex ceremonial center, a place of spiritual significance? Were the walls built for defense, or did they represent the boundaries of a sacred space where the living and the dead coexisted in a delicate balance? The mystery of Los Millares remains far from solved. Its origins, its purpose, and the beliefs of the people who constructed it continue to elude us. As we stand at the foot of the ancient walls, gazing at the remnants of a society that flourished and then vanished, we are left with more questions than answers. What secrets are still buried beneath the stone? And what knowledge, long lost to time, might yet be waiting to be uncovered? In the end, the fortifications of Los Millares stand as a testament to a civilization that once thrived in this unforgiving land, its people skilled, innovative, and mysterious. And perhaps, just as the stone walls endure, so too will the mysteries they hold. How much more remains to be discovered? Only time will tell. Hidden on the windswept hillsides of Anglesey, Wales, beneath the shadow of ancient oak trees, stands a quiet testament to the early inhabitants of the British Isles. Bryn, Celli, a passage tomb dating back over 5,000 years, is a place that invites contemplation, both of the distant past and of the mysteries that still linger around it. Its name, which means hill in the dark grove, evokes a sense of mystery, perfectly suited to the site itself, which remains a haunting enigma despite the centuries that have passed. The tomb is deceptively simple in appearance, yet its significance is profound. As you approach, the grassy mound rises before you, gently sloping toward the horizon, barely noticeable against the backdrop of the rugged Welsh countryside. Yet, as you step closer, you begin to discern the outline of the ancient structure, a ring of stones encircling an entrance that leads into the earth itself. The mound, roughly 10 meters in diameter, is unassuming at first, but beneath the turf lies a sacred space, untouched by time in its essence, yet fractured by centuries of human curiosity and excavation. Bryn Celli is a Neolithic chambered tomb, and like many of its kind, its purpose is both funerary and ceremonial. The passage that leads into the mound is aligned with the summer solstice, which suggests that its builders had an advanced understanding of celestial events. As the sun rises at the height of summer, its rays penetrate the passageway, casting light into the dark interior, where it is thought to illuminate the burial chamber and any ceremonial spaces within. The alignment of the tomb with the solstice hints at a belief system deeply tied to the cycles of nature, an acknowledgement that life, death, and rebirth were governed by the rhythms of the earth and sky. Inside the tomb, There are remnants of stone carvings and megalithic architecture, but much of its original form has been eroded or altered by centuries of human interference. The burial chamber itself is small, with just enough room for a few individuals and the ceremonial objects that would have accompanied them. What is particularly striking is the discovery of several carvings on the stones, patterns that resemble spirals, chevrons, and other geometric designs. These markings, though simple in their form, seem to be symbolic, hinting at a deeper layer of meaning that we have yet to fully understand. Could these carvings represent a language or a symbolic system, now lost to history? Or might they hold clues about the spiritual beliefs of those who constructed the tomb? The tomb at Bryn was originally built to house the dead, but some researchers suggest it may have also been a site for ritualistic practices, rituals that could have been tied to ancestor worship or a belief in the afterlife. These beliefs may have been intertwined with the cycles of the sun and the changing seasons, providing a link between the living and the dead. But were these rituals exclusive to the tomb itself, or did they extend to the surrounding landscape? Could there have been other sites, now lost to time, that were part of a greater ceremonial complex tied to the tomb? What makes Bryn particularly intriguing, however, is not just its function as a burial site, but the sheer effort involved in its construction. The tomb's builders had to transport large stones, some weighing several tons, over considerable distances, and position them with remarkable precision. How did a Neolithic society, without the aid of advanced tools, manage to construct such an enduring and complex structure? Some theorists suggest that the builders may have employed ingenious techniques, such as levers and ramps, to move these massive stones. But the questions linger. Could there have been a lost knowledge or technology that allowed these people to build such monumental structures? Could their methods have been more sophisticated than we currently understand? Even more puzzling is the tomb's precise alignment with the summer solstice. While it is well documented that many Neolithic cultures across Europe constructed their monuments to align with celestial events, the exact purpose behind these alignments is still debated. Was it purely practical, simply marking the changing of the seasons, or was it symbolic, representing something deeper, such as a connection to the divine or the belief in cycles of life and death? And why the summer solstice, specifically? Was it because this event symbolized renewal, the triumph of light over darkness? Or could there have been another, more profound reason, one that has been lost to the fog of time? As with many ancient sites, the question of who built Bryn and why remains unanswered. The tomb is thought to have been constructed by a Neolithic society that had yet to develop written language, meaning that we must rely on the physical evidence left behind. Archaeologists have speculated that the builders of the tomb were part of a broader cultural tradition found across the British Isles and Europe, a culture that constructed similar megalithic structures, often with a deep connection to the land and the cosmos. But even as we piece together this cultural framework, the specifics of the society that created Bryn remain elusive. One of the more speculative theories surrounding Bryn is that it may have been used not only as a burial site, but also as a place for communing with the dead. Some suggest that the tomb was a site for the living to connect with their ancestors, perhaps through ritualistic practices or even hallucinogenic substances. The dark, narrow passage leading into the tomb could have symbolized a journey into the afterlife, while the alignment with the solstice may have been a marker of rebirth and renewal. Could Bryn have been a place where the boundaries between life and death were blurred, where the living could commune with the departed in a spiritual or mystical sense? We may never know, but the idea that this tomb was more than just a burial site, perhaps a portal to another world, adds another layer of intrigue to the mystery. Bryn is also notable for its apparent connection to the landscape. The tomb is situated on a hilltop, offering a commanding view of the surrounding fields and coast. The choice of this location raises questions about the relationship between the tomb and the environment. Was this site chosen for its symbolism, perhaps as a place where the living could gaze out over the land of their ancestors? Was the hilltop a sacred space in itself, a place where the forces of nature converged in a way that was believed to be powerful or divine? The alignment of the tomb with the summer solstice suggests that the relationship between the site and the landscape was carefully considered, and that the builders may have been attuned to the natural world in ways that we can only begin to appreciate. As the centuries pass, Bryn Celli continues to captivate those who visit it, inviting them to wonder about the people who built it, the rituals that once took place there, and the secrets that may still lie buried within its stones. Despite centuries of study and excavation, much about the tomb remains a mystery. What was its true purpose? How were the builders able to create such a complex and enduring structure? And what, if anything, remains hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? Bryn Celli stands not only as a monument to the past, but also as a symbol of the mysteries that continue to elude us. The tomb's quiet presence, aligned with the cycles of the sun, challenges us to look beyond the known, to consider the possibility that there is still much we do not understand about the ancient world, and perhaps never will. What truths are still hidden in the darkness of Bryn Celli, waiting to be revealed? Only time will tell. High on the rocky slopes of the Osogovo Mountains in northern North Macedonia lies a site that seems almost lost in time, Kokino Observatory. At first glance, it appears to be little more than a collection of weathered stone outcrops and megalithic structures, but as the sunlight shifts and casts shadows across the landscape, a deeper story begins to emerge. This ancient site, thought to date back over 4,000 years, is a testament to the sophisticated astronomical knowledge of its creators, yet it remains one of the least understood and most enigmatic of its kind. Kokino is an astronomical observatory, but not in the way we typically imagine such sites. Unlike the famous stone circles of the British Isles or the vast astronomical alignments of the ancient Egyptians, Kokino does not consist of grand, towering megaliths or massive structures. Instead, it is a series of carefully arranged stones, natural rock formations, and platforms, all oriented with remarkable precision toward key celestial events. The most striking feature of the observatory is its panoramic view of the surrounding valleys and distant peaks, providing a sweeping vista of the landscape below, a view that, once upon a time, would have been crucial for those who relied on the stars for navigation, timekeeping, and ritual. As you walk among the stones at Kokino, it's easy to feel a sense of awe. The site is perched atop a hill at nearly 1,000 meters in elevation, with clear sightlines to the horizon. From this vantage point, the ancient stargazers could observe the rising and setting of the sun, the phases of the moon, and the movements of stars across the sky. What makes Kokino so intriguing, however, is its precise alignment with these celestial bodies. Researchers have determined that the site was carefully designed to mark the solstices, equinoxes, and certain lunar cycles, suggesting that its builders possessed an advanced understanding of astronomy long before the advent of written records. The discovery of Kokino dates back to the early 2000s, when archaeologists and astronomers began studying the site more closely. Using modern techniques of astronomical analysis, they found that the structures at Kokino were not random, but carefully positioned to track the movements of the heavens. One of the most fascinating aspects of the site is the so-called solar calendar, a series of rock formations aligned to the rising and setting of the sun on specific days of the year. This alignment indicates that the people who built Kokino had a sophisticated knowledge of the solar year and its importance in their agricultural and ceremonial practices. In addition to solar alignments, Kokino also appears to have been designed with lunar observations in mind. A large stone platform located at the southern end of the site is thought to have been used to track the cycles of the moon. The platform is positioned so that it captures the movement of the moon across the sky, perhaps indicating that the people of Kokino used lunar phases to guide their agricultural activities or to mark important religious festivals. The precision of these alignments, and the fact that they were built into the very fabric of the landscape, suggests a people deeply connected to the cycles of nature and the cosmos. But while the astronomical knowledge demonstrated at Kokino is undeniable, many aspects of the site remain mysterious. The exact identity of the people who constructed the observatory is still unclear. Some researchers believe that the site was built by the prehistoric people of the region, possibly the Bronze Age inhabitants of the area, while others suggest that the observatory may have been constructed by a group of early Indo-European settlers. Whatever their origins, it is clear that the builders of Kokino were skilled engineers and astronomers, capable of constructing a site that could accurately track the movements of the heavens. Equally perplexing is the question of the site's function. Was Kokino primarily an observatory, used to chart the stars and track celestial events? Or was it also a site of religious or ritual significance? The positioning of the stones, the care taken in aligning them with celestial events, and the presence of a large altar-like stone suggest that Kokino may have had a ceremonial function as well. Did the ancient people who used this site believe that the stars, the sun, and the moon held divine significance? Were there rituals and ceremonies tied to the cycles of nature? And did they use the observatory to commune with the heavens? Some researchers have even proposed that Kokino may have had a role in a much larger network of ancient astronomical sites, stretching across the Balkans and beyond. The idea of a shared astronomical tradition connecting disparate cultures is not new, and there are those who suggest that Kokino, with its sophisticated celestial alignments, was part of a wider cultural phenomenon. Could the people who built Kokino have been part of a larger group of astronomers and priests who traveled between sacred sites, spreading their knowledge of the stars and the natural world? Was Kokino just one piece of a vast interconnected puzzle of ancient observatories and ceremonial centers? Despite the tantalizing evidence that Kokino was an advanced astronomical site, there are still many unanswered questions. How did the builders of Kokino acquire the knowledge to create such precise alignments without the aid of written records or sophisticated tools? Could they have inherited their astronomical knowledge from an even older civilization, one that has yet to be discovered? Or is it possible that the people of Kokino developed this knowledge independently, relying on careful observation of the night sky over many generations? Another question that lingers is the significance of Kokino's location. While the site's elevated position gives it an unobstructed view of the horizon, why was it built at this particular spot, at such an elevation? Was the site chosen for its proximity to other natural features, such as sacred mountains or rivers? Or did it have a symbolic connection to the landscape? The idea that the site's builders might have chosen its location for spiritual or ceremonial reasons adds another layer of mystery to the site's purpose. The more we learn about Kokino, the more questions arise. Was it a purely practical observatory, designed to track the heavens for agricultural purposes, or was it a sacred site, used to align the community with the cosmic forces that governed their world? Could the site have served as a place of pilgrimage, where people came from far and wide to witness the celestial phenomena and partake in rituals of cosmic significance? Or was it something more, an ancient attempt to understand the very nature of the universe, to make sense of the stars and their influence on human life? As we look at the stones of Kokino today, standing weathered and silent against the backdrop of the Macedonian sky, we are left with a sense of wonder and mystery. The astronomical alignments, the intricate design, and the possible rituals that once took place at the site all point to a people who were deeply attuned to the cycles of nature and the cosmos. But as with so many ancient sites, much about Kokino remains unknown. What other secrets might be hidden within the landscape, waiting to be uncovered? What knowledge did the builders of Kokino possess, and where did it come from? Kokino stands as a testament to the ingenuity and curiosity of a lost civilization, a reminder that, even in the distant past, people looked to the stars for answers. As the sun sets over the mountains and the stars begin to emerge in the sky above, it's impossible not to wonder. What other hidden observatories, lost in time and memory, still await discovery? What mysteries still lie beneath the surface of the earth, waiting to be revealed? In the rugged hills of the Greek Peloponnese, where the terrain slopes down to the sparkling blue of the Aegean Sea, a hidden network of ancient tombs quietly waits for the curious eye. Among the most intriguing of these are the lesser Tholos tombs of the Mycenaean civilization, humble cousins to the more famous royal tombs of places like Mycenae itself, but no less enigmatic. These circular beehive-shaped structures, buried deep in the earth and lined with stone, continue to defy full understanding. They offer a rare glimpse into a world that flourished millennia ago, yet their secrets, like so many others from the distant past, remain tantalizingly elusive. The Tholos tombs, with their smooth, curved domes and intricate design, evoke a sense of timelessness. Made from massive stones carefully stacked to form a conical roof, they resemble the shells of great, ancient creatures that once roamed the earth, except that these shells were crafted with deliberate precision by the Mycenaean people, long before the rise of classical Greece. The tombs, some of which are more than 3,000 years old, are dispersed across the Greek mainland, most famously in places like the area surrounding ancient Mycenae. They were used to bury the elite of Mycenaean society, chieftains, warriors, and nobility, but also, curiously, individuals from more humble backgrounds. While the grandeur of tombs like the famous treasury of Atreus in Mycenae is widely recognized, the lesser Tholos tombs, often smaller and more isolated, have remained more mysterious. These structures are typically found in regions such as Argolis and Laconia, where they dot the landscape in clusters, often in sites that seem to follow no clear pattern. Some are positioned near ancient settlements, while others lie in isolated, almost forgotten corners of the countryside. At first glance, these tombs may seem unremarkable, but once you step inside, a different story begins to emerge. Inside these tombs, the atmosphere shifts. The heavy, cool air feels older, as though it holds the echoes of distant voices, voices that once whispered in the shadows of the tomb's great stone walls. The passage leading into the tomb is narrow and low, forcing visitors to crouch as they approach the burial chamber, but once inside, a larger, more open space unfurls, revealing the central circular chamber, the heart of the tomb. This design, which seems to channel the shape of the cosmos itself, is not merely functional. It is imbued with meaning. The circular structure may have symbolized the eternal cycle of life and death, a motif common in many ancient cultures. In a way, the tomb was a microcosm of the universe, a protected space where the deceased could transition from one realm to another. The Mycenaeans, famed for their advanced engineering and artistic accomplishments, employed remarkable techniques to build these tombs. Some of the lesser Tholos tombs are particularly striking for the precision with which the stones were cut and placed, using methods that would challenge modern builders. But while the technical achievement is undeniable, the reasons behind their construction remain speculative. What drove the Mycenaeans to create such intricate, enduring monuments to the dead? And why were some tombs constructed so far from urban centers? Were these tombs intended for a special class of individuals, or did they serve a broader social function? While much is known about the Mycenaeans as a warrior society, with their epic tales immortalized in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, the role of the lesser Tholos tombs is less clear. Most of these tombs appear to have been built in the 15th to 13th centuries BCE, at a time when the Mycenaean civilization was at its peak. The very existence of these smaller tombs, in contrast to the more lavishly decorated royal tombs, raises questions about the society's social structure. Could these tombs represent a lesser nobility or an emerging class of elites who were not yet powerful enough to merit the grandiose tombs found at Mycenae, but still held enough status to require elaborate burial practices? The tombs are often found in clusters, suggesting that these might have been family tombs, a tradition that could have tied multiple generations together in death, as well as in life. The fact that many of the tombs are oriented toward specific geographical features or alignments to the horizon further complicates their meaning. Was there a symbolic connection between these burial places and the natural world around them? Some scholars have suggested that the positioning of the tombs may have been tied to celestial events, such as the rising and setting of certain stars or the solar cycle, but this theory remains speculative. Yet, for all the mystery surrounding the lesser Tholos tombs, the archaeological record does provide some clues. The discovery of grave goods inside some of these tombs, such as pottery, weapons, and personal ornaments, tells us something of the status and lives of the people who were buried there. Some tombs even contain elaborate stone altars or niches carved into the walls, suggesting that these sites were also places of ritual or reverence long after they were sealed. Despite these discoveries, much of the symbolism surrounding the Tholos tombs remains a puzzle. The use of a beehive shape in the architecture is particularly intriguing. The beehive is a powerful symbol across many cultures, often representing fertility, the cycle of life, and the interconnectedness of all living things. Was the Mycenaean use of this shape an expression of these universal themes, or did it carry a more specific meaning tied to their unique worldview? Some have even speculated that the circular design could have had astrological significance, marking certain key moments in the celestial calendar. But again, no definitive answers have emerged. What's also curious is the sheer effort that went into building these tombs. Some of the lesser Tholos tombs, while smaller than their royal counterparts, still required significant resources and labor. The stones were quarried and transported with remarkable precision, and the construction of the tombs would have been a long and arduous process. Was this effort purely for the sake of honoring the dead, or did the tombs serve a more social function, perhaps acting as a focal point for communal identity, or as a physical representation of the power and continuity of the Mycenaean elite? And then there is the matter of the tomb's disappearance. Over time, many of the lesser Tholos tombs were abandoned, their entrances sealed and forgotten. Some were looted for their treasures, while others simply fell into disrepair. Why did the Mycenaeans stop building these tombs, and what caused the decline of the burial practices associated with them? Was the shift toward new forms of burial a sign of social or political upheaval, or was it the result of changing religious beliefs and practices? Today, the lesser Tholos tombs remain scattered across the Greek countryside, quiet monuments to a people whose world is, for the most part, lost to history. While we know much about their technical achievements and the way they honored the dead, the true purpose of these tombs continues to elude us. Were they places of ritual, symbols of power, or simply the final resting places of individuals who once held great significance in their communities? Perhaps the most profound mystery of the lesser Tholos tombs is the way they seem to call to us from the past. Their silent stone walls have witnessed centuries of change, and yet they remain as enigmatic as ever, each one a riddle waiting to be solved. As we stand before these ancient structures, the question remains: what truths still lie buried beneath the soil of ancient Greece, waiting to be unearthed? What secrets might the stones still hold? Hidden, perhaps, just out of reach. On the southern coast of Cyprus, amidst the rolling hills and the whisper of the Mediterranean breeze, lies an extraordinary archaeological site, a site where the ancient past seems to rise from the earth like an unsolved riddle. The stone houses of Khirokitia, remnants of a Neolithic settlement that thrived around 6000 BCE, stand as one of the oldest and most well-preserved examples of early human architecture. As you approach the site, the landscape is dotted with these circular stone dwellings, beehive-like structures, their thick stone walls rising from the ground with an eerie simplicity, their purpose and meaning still eluding us, despite centuries of study. The village itself is spread across a hillside, offering a panoramic view of the surrounding countryside, a feature that would have been highly valued by the early inhabitants. The houses, built from carefully fitted limestone blocks, are distinguished by their rounded shape and low ceilings, their stonework so precise that even after thousands of years, much of the settlement still retains its integrity. The site is striking, almost otherworldly in its quiet endurance. From a distance, the stone dwellings resemble ancient hives, housing something sacred and mysterious within their walls. Their unusual, nearly uniform design challenges our understanding of Neolithic architecture and raises questions about the culture that created them. Khirokitia is not just a site of architectural interest. It is a window into a world long forgotten. The settlement was first discovered in 1934, and since then, extensive excavations have unearthed many of its houses, along with artifacts that provide insights into the daily lives of its inhabitants. The people who lived here were part of a transitional period in human history, where agriculture was beginning to replace hunting and gathering as the dominant way of life. Yet, despite this technological leap, the people of Khirokitia were still deeply connected to the natural world, and their architecture seems to reflect this connection. Each of the stone houses at Khirokitia was built using local materials, primarily limestone, and constructed with a technique that, although simple, exhibits a remarkable level of sophistication. The walls are thick, and the roofs, once covered with branches and earth, were designed to provide insulation against the island's hot summer days and cold winters. The houses are arranged in a radial pattern, with smaller, more communal structures dotting the space between the larger, more prominent dwellings. Some researchers have suggested that this arrangement indicates the existence of a tightly knit community, perhaps with a hierarchy of some kind, though there is no definitive evidence of social stratification. What is particularly fascinating about Khirokitia is the unusual design of the homes. Most Neolithic dwellings of the era were rectangular, but here the people of Khirokitia constructed their houses in a circular form, an architectural choice that has baffled researchers for decades. Why round? What did the circular shape symbolize, if anything? Was it merely a practical decision based on the local environment, or was there something deeper, more symbolic at play? The round shape is echoed in other Neolithic cultures, but the uniformity of this particular design raises questions about whether the Khirokitia people were part of a larger, shared cultural movement, or whether this style of dwelling had a unique significance to them alone. Inside the houses, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of domestic life, pottery, grinding stones, and animal bones, suggesting that the people of Khirokitia were farmers who raised livestock and cultivated crops. Yet while these finds provide important insights into the daily life of the settlement, they also leave behind a deeper mystery. What else might the settlement have been used for? Some houses show signs of ritual activity, such as small altars or stones placed in specific locations within the structures. Could Khirokitia have been a place where religious or ceremonial activities took place? Did the circular dwellings represent more than just shelter, perhaps a symbolic connection to the cosmos or the cycle of life and death? One of the most intriguing aspects of Khirokitia is its sudden and unexplained abandonment. Despite the apparent prosperity of the settlement, the people of Khirokitia vanished sometime around 3800 BCE. There is no evidence of war, famine, or natural disaster to explain the abrupt departure, and the site appears to have been abandoned almost overnight. Why did the inhabitants of this advanced Neolithic community leave? Did they migrate to other areas, or did they simply cease to exist as a distinct group? The lack of any clear explanation only deepens the mystery surrounding Khirokitia. Were they driven away by forces beyond their control, or was there a more complex internal reason for the settlement's demise? The abandonment of the site has led to various theories, some more speculative than others. Some researchers suggest that the circular homes of Khirokitia could have served a ritualistic or spiritual purpose, perhaps acting as a kind of intermediary space between the living and the dead. Could the sudden departure of the settlement have been tied to a religious or cultural shift? The circular nature of the homes might point to a cyclical view of life, where death and rebirth were intimately connected, a belief system that could have prompted a mass exodus or a transformation of the community's way of life. Another theory posits that the residents of Khirokitia may have been part of a larger migratory group, moving between different regions of the Mediterranean in search of better resources or new trade opportunities. The fact that the settlement appears to be strategically placed, with views of the surrounding landscape and proximity to natural resources, suggests that the people of Khirokitia might have been engaged in long-distance trade or had contact with other contemporary societies. But if they were part of a larger network, why did they disappear so suddenly, and why did no other settlement in the region take their place? Still, others speculate that Khirokitia might have been the victim of some form of social upheaval, perhaps a breakdown in the social fabric that led to the abandonment of the settlement. With no written records to offer direct insight into what happened, we are left to piece together the mystery from the physical remnants they left behind. Could it have been a sudden cultural or political collapse? Or perhaps a quiet, peaceful retreat to the more remote areas of Cyprus, where the people simply left behind their monumental homes and moved on? What's most captivating about Khirokitia is the way it continues to invite questions, even after decades of study. The circular homes, the seeming harmony between architecture and nature, the evidence of daily life intertwined with possible ceremonial practices, all suggest a society that was far more complex and nuanced than we often give them credit for. Yet the mystery of why they left and what their sudden disappearance might mean remains unsolved. It is a reminder that even in a world where we think we understand so much, there are still stories waiting to be uncovered, mysteries lingering beneath the surface of the earth. The Khirokitia stone houses stand as a silent, enduring puzzle, a testament to a culture lost to time but not forgotten. As we stand among the stones, we are reminded of how much we still don't know about these early humans, and how much remains hidden in the ancient landscapes of the Mediterranean. What were they truly seeking in their circular homes, and what drove them to leave it all behind? The answers, perhaps, will never be fully known, but the questions remain, waiting to be explored. On the rugged coastline of Brittany, France, a colossal mound of stones rises from the earth, its ancient shape defying the ages. The Cairn of Barnenez, one of the largest and most intricate megalithic structures in Europe, commands attention as it rests quietly against the backdrop of the vast Atlantic Ocean. At first glance, it might appear as a simple burial mound, but as you approach, the scale of the site becomes apparent. Barnenez is more than just a cairn. It is a testament to the skill and vision of a civilization whose understanding of architecture and symbolism still baffles modern researchers. The cairn, built around 6000 BCE, predates the Great Pyramids of Egypt by over 2 millennia and was constructed by an ancient people who left no written record. The sheer size of Barnenez is staggering. Spanning more than 70 meters in length and rising over 8 meters in height, it is composed of thousands of massive stones, carefully arranged to form a series of chambers and passageways. Unlike the more familiar circular burial mounds of the British Isles, Barnenez is elongated, its shape resembling a long, low ridge of stone stretching across the landscape. The structure is not merely a pile of rocks. It was constructed with precision, incorporating architectural features that suggest it was designed with specific intentions. Inside the cairn, a labyrinth of narrow, stone-lined corridors leads to a series of chambers, each one meticulously crafted. Some of these chambers were likely used for ritualistic purposes, while others were intended for burial. In total, Barnenez contains at least 11 chambers, some of which have been adorned with carvings and symbols, though the meaning of these remains elusive. The walls of the cairn were once covered with a layer of soil and turf, which has since eroded, leaving the stones exposed to the elements. Still, the structure remains largely intact, offering an extraordinary glimpse into the ancient past. What makes the Cairn of Barnenez particularly mysterious is its complexity and its function. Though many burial mounds from this period are relatively simple in design, Barnenez is anything but. The cairn's layout suggests a deep understanding of geometry and spatial organization, an insight into the intellectual capacity of its builders. Furthermore, the presence of multiple chambers, some of which are oriented in specific directions, raises the question of whether the cairn had symbolic or astronomical significance. Was the cairn intended to align with celestial events, such as the solstices or equinoxes? Or was it perhaps a representation of something far more complex, an early attempt to model the cosmos within the structure of the earth itself? The cairn is thought to have served as a communal burial site, but its size and sophistication suggest it may have had more profound meanings. Who were the people who constructed Barnenez, and what did the cairn represent to them? Was it simply a monumental tomb, or was it a place of ritual, perhaps a site where the living and the dead were brought together in ceremonies designed to honor ancestors or gods? Some have proposed that the structure could have served as a form of ancestor worship, with the dead being interred in the chambers, while the living engaged in rites that connected them to their forebears. However, the answers to these questions remain elusive. Despite extensive archaeological research and excavation at Barnenez, the true purpose of the cairn remains a mystery. The artifacts discovered within the cairn, such as tools and pottery, suggest a highly developed society capable of complex construction, yet there are no clear indications as to the exact nature of the rituals that took place here. Was Barnenez a religious site, a burial mound, or something else entirely? What adds to the enigma is the lack of comparable structures in the region. While megalithic tombs and burial cairns are not uncommon in Brittany, none are quite like Barnenez. The size, design, and complexity of the cairn set it apart from other sites, making it an outlier in the megalithic landscape. This has led some researchers to speculate that Barnenez may have been a unique project, perhaps created by a specialized group of individuals, such as priests or ritual leaders, who had access to resources and knowledge that other communities did not. Could the builders of Barnenez have been part of a larger pan-European culture with shared architectural practices? Or was this a distinct regional development? The lack of evidence for widespread similarities between Barnenez and other sites has fueled debates about its origins and its purpose. One particularly intriguing feature of the cairn is its alignment. While much of the site has been eroded over the millennia, some sections of the cairn appear to have been oriented to the rising and setting of the sun, suggesting that the people who built Barnenez had a keen interest in the movements of the heavens. Could the cairn have served as an early observatory, a place where celestial events were tracked and recorded? Some researchers have pointed to the orientation of the structure's passageways as evidence of an astronomical function, though the exact alignments remain speculative. If Barnenez was, in fact, a site for celestial observation, then it would suggest a highly advanced understanding of the natural world, far ahead of its time. However, the cairn's association with the heavens may not be purely astronomical. There are those who propose that Barnenez was a symbolic representation of the cosmos, a physical manifestation of the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The cairn's elongated shape and the arrangement of its chambers could be seen as a reflection of the journey of the soul, with the living entering the tomb from one end, passing through the chambers and emerging from the other end, perhaps symbolizing a passage from life to death, or from this world to the next. If this interpretation holds, Barnenez may have been more than just a tomb. It could have been a spiritual journey, a place where the dead were honored and the living sought connection with the eternal. Yet, the mystery of Barnenez is not just confined to its function. It also extends to the identity of its builders. Who were these people who constructed such a monumental structure in the Neolithic period? We know that they lived in a society that relied on agriculture, that they had access to sophisticated tools and resources, and that they were capable of engineering remarkable structures. But beyond these facts, little is known about their culture, their beliefs, or their way of life. Were they connected to other cultures in Europe? Or were they part of a distinct group with unique practices and rituals? Did they leave behind other monuments that have yet to be discovered? Or was Barnenez the pinnacle of their architectural achievements? As we stand before the Cairn of Barnenez today, its towering stones weathered by millennia of wind and rain, we are left with more questions than answers. The cairn, though impressive in its scale and craftsmanship, remains a mystery, a symbol of an ancient people whose knowledge and beliefs are largely unknown. Was it a monument to the dead, a temple to the gods, or an astronomical observatory? Did it serve a spiritual function, or was it simply a burial site for a lost civilization? And, perhaps most haunting of all, what other secrets does Barnenez still hold, buried beneath the stones, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? In the quiet heart of western France, amidst the rolling plains of the Poitou-Charentes region, lies an ancient and enigmatic site that has stood the test of time for over 6,000 years. The Tumulus of Bougon, a group of burial mounds that forms one of the most significant megalithic complexes in Europe, rises silently from the earth, its significance only partially understood. Though it may seem like a simple collection of earth and stone from a distance, upon closer inspection, these mounds, imposing in both size and mystery, reveal an intricate and deliberate design, one that suggests a culture far more sophisticated than we often give ancient peoples credit for. The tumulus complex at Bougon consists of 5 large burial mounds, each one an imposing structure made from a combination of stone, earth, and clay. Some of these mounds are large enough to house multiple burial chambers within them, with the largest reaching nearly 20 meters in diameter and standing over 7 meters tall. The site, which dates back to around 4,500 BCE, was used primarily as a place of burial during the Neolithic period. However, it is the complexity of the site that makes it particularly intriguing. Unlike simpler burial mounds found across Europe, the Tumulus of Bougon was carefully designed and constructed, with a precise layout and a level of craftsmanship that indicates the people who built it possessed considerable architectural knowledge. At first glance, the tumuli may appear like simple burial sites, designed to house the dead, but the arrangement and construction of the mounds suggest something far more deliberate, perhaps even symbolic. Each of the tumuli is made up of multiple stone chambers, and inside these chambers, archaeologists have found a wealth of artifacts, pottery, tools, bones, and even small idols, suggesting that the people who built Bougon had complex burial practices. Some of the mounds contain massive stone slabs weighing several tons, which were used to seal the burial chambers. The effort involved in moving and placing these stones hints at a society with organized labor and the ability to mobilize resources on a large scale. As the archaeologists began their excavations in the 19th century, they uncovered a fascinating array of relics that provided a glimpse into the lives of the people who built the tumulus. Tools made from flint, pottery vessels, and polished stone axes all pointed to a society that was deeply connected to the land, relying on agriculture and hunting. Yet, within these mundane objects, there was also a sense of something more ritualistic, more ceremonial. Many of the tombs contained objects of apparent symbolic value, intricately carved stones, figurines, and even objects that seemed to serve no practical function. What was the deeper meaning of these objects? And why were they buried alongside the deceased? Were these offerings to the gods, or were they meant to accompany the dead into the afterlife? Of particular interest are the burial practices themselves. Unlike many other megalithic tombs, which often contain only a single burial chamber, the tumuli of Bougon were designed to accommodate multiple individuals, often in a series of chambers connected by narrow passageways. The construction of these chambers, some of which are aligned in specific directions, has led some scholars to suggest that the tumuli were more than just burial sites. Could they have served as places for communal ceremonies, where the living came together to honor the dead and perhaps invoke the power of their ancestors? The very design of the site, its multiple chambers, its alignment, and its careful construction, suggests that the tumuli were more than just funerary monuments. They may have played a role in larger social and ritualistic practices. Yet, despite the wealth of artifacts discovered at Bougon, much about the site remains unclear. Why were such elaborate structures built to house the dead? What did the multiple chambers and the vast quantities of stone represent? And what did the people of Bougon believe about death and the afterlife? The lack of written records from this period leaves us with only the stones and the artifacts to provide answers that so far have proven elusive. Theories abound regarding the symbolism of the tumulus. Some believe that the tumuli were designed to represent the universe, with the chambers representing different realms or stages of existence. The alignment of the chambers, in particular, has led some researchers to speculate that the tumuli may have had astronomical significance, with the positioning of the tombs reflecting the cycles of the sun or the stars. If true, this would imply that the builders of Bougon had a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos and the passage of time, knowledge that they may have used to structure their lives and their rituals. Others have proposed that the tumulus complex was part of a larger cultural or religious movement, one that spread across the European continent during the Neolithic period. Evidence of similar burial mounds and megalithic structures can be found throughout Europe, from Ireland to Scandinavia to the Mediterranean, and it is possible that the people of Bougon were part of a pan-European tradition of monumental burial practices. If this is the case, then Bougon would represent an important link in a much larger cultural and religious network. But why, then, did such practices fade from view? Why did these grand burial sites disappear from the archaeological record after the Neolithic period, replaced by simpler forms of burial? Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the Tumulus of Bougon is the role it seems to play in the landscape. Situated on a low ridge overlooking the surrounding plains, the tumuli were visible from miles around, a landmark that would have been impossible to ignore. Was this intentional? Was the tumulus meant to be a visible marker of the power or importance of those buried within? Or was it, as some theorize, a symbol of the interconnectedness of the living and the dead, a physical manifestation of a world where the boundary between the two was not as clear-cut as it is today? If the tumulus was intended to be seen by the living, what message did it send? Was it a reminder of death, of the ancestors, or of the broader cosmic forces that governed their world? Despite the careful study of the Tumulus of Bougon, the questions about its purpose and meaning remain as tantalizing as ever. Was it merely a burial site, a tomb for the dead, or was it a monument to something greater, perhaps an ancient religion or worldview that has since been lost to time? The artifacts found within the mounds suggest a complex society, but the full scope of their beliefs and practices remains hidden beneath the soil. The sheer effort and planning that went into the construction of the tumuli hint at a culture with a deep understanding of architecture, astronomy, and ritual. Yet we remain left to wonder, what did they believe, and why did they go to such great lengths to create these monumental structures? As we stand before the Tumulus of Bougon, with its ancient stones standing tall against the passage of time, we are reminded that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. Some questions are buried deep within the earth, waiting to be uncovered by future generations. For now, we can only wonder what secrets the tumulus may still hold, hidden just out of reach, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. What truths remain beneath these ancient stones, and what did the builders of Bougon hope to preserve for those who would one day come searching? The answers may never be fully known, but the questions endure. Nestled in the dense, verdant rainforests of Brazil, far from the well-trodden paths of modern civilization, lies a site that has long captivated archaeologists and historians alike: the Monte Alegre rock shelters. These ancient shelters, carved into the cliffs of the Amazonian landscape, tell a story that stretches back over 12,000 years, a story of human survival, ingenuity, and mystery. Despite their relative obscurity, the rock shelters are among the oldest known human habitations in South America, offering a tantalizing glimpse into a distant past. Yet, as with so many ancient sites, the more we learn, the more questions seem to arise. The Monte Alegre rock shelters consist of a series of large overhangs and caves nestled within the towering cliffs along the Rio Tapajós in the Brazilian Amazon. The area is lush and humid, its dense foliage giving the shelters an air of isolation and timelessness. The rock formations themselves are dramatic, with sheer cliffs rising from the forest floor, while above, the canopies of towering trees create a dappled green veil. At first glance, the site may seem like little more than a series of natural formations, but the deeper one explores, the more it becomes apparent that these shelters were used by ancient peoples for a much more profound purpose than mere shelter from the elements. The earliest evidence of human activity at Monte Alegre dates back around 12,000 years during the late Pleistocene period, and it is this long history that makes the site so intriguing. Archaeologists have uncovered numerous layers of habitation, with evidence of human presence stretching across millennia. Within these layers, a wealth of artifacts has been discovered: stone tools, pottery fragments, animal remains, and even traces of plant materials that suggest a deep connection to the surrounding environment. But perhaps most compelling are the remarkable rock paintings that adorn the walls of the shelters. Striking images of animals, human figures, and abstract shapes that provide a window into the spiritual and cultural lives of the people who once called this place home. The rock paintings, often referred to as petroglyphs, are among the most intriguing elements of Monte Alegre. The motifs depicted on the rock surfaces are varied, ranging from simple geometric shapes to more complex representations of animals, such as fish, birds, and jaguars. These images suggest that the people who lived at Monte Alegre had a rich, symbolic, and ritualistic life, but their meaning remains elusive. What were these images intended to communicate? Were they expressions of religious beliefs, or did they have a more mundane, everyday significance? Some researchers believe the images may be connected to hunting rituals, while others propose that they could represent a form of early myth-making or storytelling. What adds to the mystery of the Monte Alegre rock shelters is the fact that the paintings are not confined to one specific area of the shelters. Instead, they are scattered across the walls of several different caves and overhangs, some of which are in places that would have been difficult for humans to reach without significant effort. This raises the question: why were these images painted in such inaccessible locations? Were they intended to be viewed by the living, or were they created as offerings to the spirits or gods that inhabited the world around them? The difficulty of accessing these paintings suggests that they may have held a sacred or ceremonial purpose, perhaps connected to rituals designed to invoke the power of the natural world or to communicate with unseen forces. Adding to the enigma of the site are the remains of human burials that have been discovered in some of the rock shelters. These burials, often found beneath layers of stone and earth, suggest that the people of Monte Alegre did not merely use these shelters for temporary refuge, but saw them as sacred spaces. The placement of these graves, some of which are located near the rock paintings, raises questions about the relationship between the dead and the living in this ancient society. Were the dead believed to reside in these shelters, alongside the living, or were these sites seen as liminal spaces, where the boundary between life and death was more fluid? While the material culture found at Monte Alegre provides valuable insights into the lives of its inhabitants, much of the site's significance remains unclear. Who were these people? Were they a part of a larger, now forgotten culture that spread across the Amazon, or were they isolated, their way of life distinct and unique? Archaeologists have speculated that the people of Monte Alegre were among the first to develop complex social structures in the region, based on the evidence of organized living spaces and the ritualistic nature of their art and burials. However, the absence of written records leaves many gaps in our understanding, and the site itself offers few definitive answers. The rock shelters also suggest a deep and complex relationship with the landscape, which would have been both a resource and a spiritual presence. Some researchers have proposed that the paintings were a form of early mapping, with the animals and symbols acting as markers of significant landmarks or resources. The jaguars, often featured in the petroglyphs, may have held a particular importance, perhaps as a totemic animal or as a symbol of power and fertility. But why was such an emphasis placed on animals, particularly those as elusive as jaguars, if not for their symbolic or spiritual significance? A particularly curious aspect of the Monte Alegre rock shelters is the evidence of early human interaction with the environment. In addition to the rock art, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of early plant cultivation and animal domestication in the area. This raises the possibility that the people who lived here were not just foragers, but were already beginning to shape their environment in ways that would set the stage for the agricultural revolution that would follow in other parts of the world. The relationship between these early settlers and the environment seems to have been one of intimate knowledge, as they adapted to the rhythms of the rainforest and made use of its abundant resources. What other, perhaps even more advanced knowledge did they possess? Were they the pioneers of a deeper understanding of the land, or were they following traditions passed down through generations? Despite the compelling evidence that the Monte Alegre rock shelters provide into the early history of human life in the Amazon, many questions remain unanswered. Were the rock paintings a form of religious expression, or did they serve a more practical function? What role did these sacred spaces play in the social and spiritual lives of the people who lived here? And perhaps most intriguingly, why did this once thriving site, so rich in culture and history, remain hidden for so long, obscured by the thick canopy of the Amazon? As we stand before the rock shelters today, it is difficult not to feel a sense of awe at the thought of the ancient people who once called this place home. The paintings, the burials, and the artifacts they left behind offer us a rare window into a distant and largely forgotten past. But they also remind us that, despite all our discoveries, much remains out of reach. The Monte Alegre rock shelters are a testament to a lost world, one where human ingenuity and spirituality flourished in the heart of the Amazon. And as we search for answers, we are reminded that some mysteries, however ancient, may never be fully unraveled. What did the people of Monte Alegre truly believe? What stories did they hope to tell through their art? And what other secrets lie buried beneath the dense foliage of the rainforest, waiting to be uncovered? On a small, serene island in the Gulf of Morbihan, off the coast of Brittany, France, there exists a burial site that has stood as a testament to the mysteries of the Neolithic era for over 6,000 years. The Gavrinis burial cairn, a megalithic structure built of stone, rises out of the lush, windswept landscape, its weathered stones bearing silent witness to a time long past. At first glance, the cairn appears to be little more than a large mound of stones, typical of many megalithic tombs in the region. Yet as you approach, the intricacies of the site become clear. The true significance of Gavrinis is revealed not just in its sheer size and structure, but in the extraordinary craftsmanship that lies within. The cairn itself is located atop a hill on Gavrinis Island, a place surrounded by the quiet waters of the Gulf. The island is uninhabited today, its silence echoing the passage of millennia. Yet once, it was the site of a bustling, sacred place. The burial mound, measuring approximately 20 meters in diameter and standing nearly 4 meters high, was carefully constructed from large stones, each meticulously placed. Over time, the structure became enveloped in a blanket of earth, forming the burial mound we see today. Though it may seem modest from the outside, the cairn hides an inner world of profound complexity. The true marvel of Gavrinis, however, lies not in its exterior, but in the labyrinthine passageway that leads to a chamber deep within the mound. Visitors entering through the narrow passageway are greeted by a breathtaking sight. The chamber, built from massive stone slabs, is covered with intricate carvings, patterns that seem to swirl and spiral across the surfaces of the stones. These carvings, thought to be some of the finest examples of Neolithic art in Europe, depict a variety of geometric shapes, as well as symbols and motifs that are still not fully understood. Among the images are motifs of circles, spirals, and lozenges, and, curiously, representations that may resemble stylized representations of animals, plants, and human forms. The carvings on the stones inside the cairn have intrigued archaeologists for decades. While many megalithic tombs from the Neolithic period feature simple carvings or markings, the designs within Gavrinis are exceptional for their detail and complexity. What purpose did these carvings serve? Were they mere decoration, or did they have a more profound, ritualistic meaning? Some have speculated that the spirals and circular motifs were meant to symbolize the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, reflecting the Neolithic people's view of existence as an ongoing, cyclical process. Others suggest that the carvings were astronomical symbols, aligning with the movements of the sun or moon, or even the stars, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos. Interestingly, the passage leading into the cairn is oriented in such a way that it aligns with certain celestial events. The entrance is thought to be aligned with the setting sun during specific times of the year, raising the question, was Gavrinis designed as a site for ritual observation of the heavens? Did the people who built it use the structure to track the solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial phenomena? If this is the case, Gavrinis would be an early example of a structure designed not just as a tomb, but as an observatory, an early connection between the world of the living and the cosmos. Yet, despite the remarkable precision of the carvings and the structure's alignment with celestial events, many questions remain unanswered. The exact purpose of the Gavrinis cairn remains shrouded in mystery. Was it simply a burial site for a prominent individual or group, or was it something more, a place of worship, an astronomical observatory, or a portal between the worlds of the living and the dead? The burial chambers, though containing human remains, do not offer enough evidence to suggest the exact nature of the rituals performed here. The site may have been used for multiple purposes, as a tomb, a ceremonial center, or even a place of ancestor worship. Moreover, the people who built Gavrinis remain largely unknown. Little is known about the social and cultural practices of the Neolithic inhabitants of Brittany. Were they part of a larger, pan-European tradition of megalithic construction, or was Gavrinis the work of a more isolated community with distinct practices? While there are other megalithic tombs and burial cairns in the region, such as those at Karnak, none are quite like Gavrinis in terms of the quality of the carvings or the precise astronomical alignment. Could this suggest that Gavrinis was a uniquely important site, a focal point of ritual and knowledge for the people who lived there? One of the most perplexing aspects of the site is the way in which the tomb was constructed. The stones used in its construction were not quarried from the immediate area, but transported from further afield. The stones, some weighing several tons, would have required significant effort to move and place, suggesting that the people who built Gavrinis had access to a well-organized labor force, as well as advanced knowledge of stoneworking and construction techniques. Why, then, did they invest so much energy and resources into building this structure? Was it an expression of religious devotion, a social statement, or a practical need for a monumental tomb? The answer remains elusive. The mystery surrounding Gavrinis deepens when we consider the fact that it is only one of many such megalithic structures in the region. The surrounding islands of Brittany are home to countless burial mounds, stone circles, and menhirs, each offering its own tantalizing clues about the past. How did these structures fit together within the broader cultural landscape of Neolithic Europe? Were they part of a larger religious or astronomical network, connected to other sites like Stonehenge or Newgrange, which share similar patterns of astronomical alignment? Or were they more isolated, the product of localized communities with their own distinct beliefs and rituals? In the end, as we stand before the Gavrinis' burial cairn today, we are left with more questions than answers. The cairn's carvings, its alignment with the stars, and its monumental construction all point to a sophisticated and highly organized society, yet the exact nature of the site remains unclear. Was it simply a tomb, or did it serve a larger, more mysterious purpose? Were the carvings a form of early writing, or a symbolic language that has long since been forgotten? Was Gavrinis built as a place to honor the dead, or did it serve as a bridge between the living and the gods? The mystery of Gavrinis remains unresolved, a silent enigma in the Brittany landscape. Its stones, though worn by centuries of wind and rain, still hold secrets that may never fully be revealed. As we contemplate the ancient carvings and the silent passageways, we can only wonder what the people of Gavrinis hoped to communicate through their monumental creation, and perhaps what other clues might still lie hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered by future generations of explorers. In the heart of West Africa, between the countries of Senegal and Gambia, lies a collection of ancient stone circles scattered across the savanna and forested hills like the remnants of a forgotten civilization. These structures, known collectively as the stone circles of Senegambia, are a profound testament to the ingenuity of ancient peoples. Yet, despite their size and significance, they remain an enigma, an unresolved puzzle that continues to captivate historians, archaeologists, and mystics alike. The stone circles are spread across a vast expanse, stretching from the southern reaches of Senegal to the northern region of Gambia. The most prominent of these sites is the one located in the village of Senegambia, where more than 1,000 stones form a vast circular arrangement. The largest circle, which stands as an imposing monument to human effort, spans nearly 50 meters in diameter, with large stones arranged meticulously in a circular pattern. Some of the stones, standing upright like silent sentinels, reach heights of over 2 meters, while others lie scattered, having toppled over with time. These standing stones are often referred to as menhirs, and their size and placement suggest a great deal of planning and effort. But what was the purpose behind these seemingly random arrangements of stones? The circles themselves are not isolated but part of a larger complex of megalithic structures scattered across this region of West Africa. Many of these stone circles, some more than 2,000 years old, contain burial sites with human remains found beneath the stones. The burial mounds suggest that these circles were not merely ceremonial, but served a significant role in ancient religious or cultural practices. And yet, despite the wealth of archaeological evidence, we know remarkably little about the culture that created them. Who were the people behind these monumental structures, and what was their purpose in constructing such elaborate yet mysterious stone circles? The most commonly accepted theory is that these stone circles were built by the ancestors of the Manding-speaking peoples of West Africa, whose descendants today occupy the region. The megaliths are thought to be aligned with celestial bodies, indicating an advanced knowledge of astronomy. Some circles are aligned with the solstices, while others seem to track the movement of the stars, suggesting that the people who built them were not only adept at navigating their immediate environment, but also understood the rhythms of the heavens. Were these stone circles used as observatories, marking the changing seasons, or perhaps to honor gods or spirits associated with the stars? The purpose of the burial mounds also raises intriguing questions. Why were the dead placed in such close proximity to these stones, and what significance did the stones hold for the people who lived here? Were they meant to be guardians of the dead, ensuring that the spirits of the ancestors would remain close to the living? Or could these stones have served as markers of status, indicating that the individuals buried beneath them were of particular importance, either as rulers, shamans, or other figures of power? The question remains open, and the lack of written records from this period only deepens the mystery. Some scholars have proposed that the stone circles served as sites for ritualistic ceremonies, perhaps linked to ancestor worship or fertility rites. The alignment of the stones with celestial events, particularly the rising and setting of the sun, suggests that these rituals may have been timed to coincide with important moments in the natural world. Could the stone circles have been places where communities gathered to mark the changing of the seasons or to honor their ancestors through elaborate feasts or sacrifices? If so, what did these ceremonies entail, and what was the cultural significance of these gatherings? Others have suggested that the stone circles may have served as symbols of social organization or political power. The large size of the structures, combined with their precise alignment, could indicate that the building of these sites was a communal effort, organized by a central authority. Could the construction of the stone circles have been a way of asserting power or unity, a means of demonstrating control over the land and its people? And if the stone circles were used for ceremonial purposes, who would have had the authority to dictate the rituals, and what role did the common people play in these elaborate ceremonies? As we look deeper into the construction of these stone circles, we are confronted with an even greater mystery: the origin of the stones themselves. The menhirs used in the construction of the circles were not sourced from local quarries, but were instead transported from distant locations, some as far as 100 kilometers away. How did the people who built the stone circles manage to move such massive stones across vast distances, particularly without the wheel or other advanced technology? Some researchers speculate that they may have used a system of logs and ropes to drag the stones, while others suggest that they may have used a system of sledges and runners, relying on the water to help move the stones along the rivers. The sheer scale of this task suggests that the people of Senegambia were capable of organizing large, complex labor forces. Yet again, we are left wondering, what motivated them to undertake such a colossal effort? The fact that the stones were transported over such great distances has led some to speculate about the existence of trade networks or even a shared cultural tradition across the region. Were the builders of the stone circles part of a larger cultural or religious movement that spanned much of West Africa? Or were these circles the work of isolated communities that simply shared similar practices? And, if the latter is the case, what might this tell us about the exchange of ideas and knowledge in ancient West Africa? In addition to these more grounded theories, some more speculative ideas have emerged surrounding the stone circles of Senegambia. Some have suggested that these megaliths could have served as markers of an ancient global civilization, suggesting that the people who built these stone circles were connected to a broader network of advanced societies across the world. Others have even posited that these circles may have been constructed with knowledge of sacred geometry or even extraterrestrial guidance. While these theories remain on the fringes of academic thought, they highlight the enduring mystery of the stone circles and the powerful sense of awe they inspire. As we stand before the stone circles today, the weight of their mystery is palpable. The quiet stones, weathered by time, seem to whisper of a forgotten past, a past rich in symbolism and meaning, yet shrouded in ambiguity. What knowledge did the people of Senegambia possess? Were these circles built solely for religious or ceremonial purposes, or were they the product of a more complex cultural and political landscape? And what other secrets might still lie hidden beneath the earth, awaiting discovery? The stone circles of Senegambia remain one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of West Africa, offering only tantalizing glimpses into a culture and a world that have long since faded from memory. As we ponder their purpose, their construction, and the people who created them, we are reminded that, sometimes, the past remains stubbornly elusive, its true meaning locked away beneath the stones themselves. What was the true purpose of the stone circles, and what might we still have to learn from them? Nestled high in the Andes Mountains of southern Ecuador, the ancient site of Ingapirca stands as one of the most enigmatic remnants of pre-Columbian civilization. Known primarily for its iconic El Castillo, a well-preserved Inca sun temple, Ingapirca also harbors a series of lesser-known structures scattered throughout the surrounding terrain. These lesser structures, though overshadowed by the grandeur of El Castillo, present an intriguing mystery. Why were they built, and what purpose did they serve? The site itself is set against a breathtaking backdrop: rolling hills, verdant valleys, and jagged peaks stretching toward the horizon. The high-altitude location, over 3,000 meters above sea level, and the region's harsh climate have preserved much of Ingapirca's remains, allowing archaeologists and visitors alike a rare glimpse into a lost world. The most striking feature of Ingapirca is undoubtedly El Castillo, a remarkable example of Inca stonework, with its semicircular walls and finely cut stones that fit together so perfectly, it's said that not even a knife blade can fit between them. Yet, as awe-inspiring as El Castillo is, the lesser structures scattered around the site hold just as much potential to reveal secrets about the past. These lesser structures, often overlooked by mainstream archaeology, include smaller platforms, enclosures, and irregularly shaped buildings. They dot the landscape in areas that seem to hold little immediate strategic or ceremonial significance. What sets these structures apart from the more monumental Incan constructions is the apparent absence of a unifying purpose. While El Castillo has long been associated with solar worship, these smaller buildings lack any obvious connections to celestial events or royal tombs. This raises the question: what were they used for? Could they have served a domestic or communal function, or were they part of an entirely different kind of ritualistic or ceremonial activity that has not yet been understood? The prevailing theory suggests that these structures were likely part of the complex network of the Inca Empire, used as administrative centers or rest stops along the Inca Trail system. Given the strategic location of Ingapirca, it may have served as an important way station for the Incas' vast interconnected empire. But this theory, while plausible, doesn't fully explain the architectural style or the unusual placement of the lesser structures. Some of these buildings seem to have been constructed in ways that deliberately differ from the Inca's more standard designs, prompting questions about whether the site had a cultural significance that predated the Inca occupation. Indeed, Ingapirca is unique in that it was not built entirely by the Incas. Archaeologists have found evidence that the site was originally constructed by the Cañari people, a culture predating the Incas by centuries. The Cañari were known for their skillful stone construction, and some of the stones in the lesser structures at Ingapirca appear to be of a different style, suggesting that the Cañari were responsible for at least part of the construction. This raises the possibility that the site represents a blend of two very different cultures. Did the Incas simply appropriate the site for their own purposes, or did the two cultures interact and share knowledge? And, if so, what knowledge might have been passed down through the generations that we have yet to fully uncover? One of the most puzzling features of the lesser structures at Ingapirca is their alignment with certain natural features. While El Castillo is clearly aligned with the sun, an Inca practice that links their temples to celestial events, the smaller buildings appear to be positioned in ways that suggest a different kind of relationship to the land. Some structures seem to be oriented toward specific mountain peaks or rock formations, suggesting that they were built with particular landscapes in mind. Could these alignments indicate that the lesser structures were used for purposes that had to do with agricultural cycles, water management, or even spiritual beliefs tied to the natural world? The placement of these structures in relation to the surrounding landscape is an area of particular interest for archaeologists. Inca architecture is renowned for its careful consideration of geography, but the relationship between these lesser structures and the natural environment at Ingapirca remains elusive. Some researchers speculate that the placement of the structures may have been tied to ancient practices of water management or farming, as the region was known for its agricultural terraces. Were these buildings part of a sophisticated system of irrigation or land management? Or, as some fringe theories suggest, did they serve a more spiritual or ceremonial function, perhaps linked to the mountain spirits that many Andean cultures revered? An interesting aspect of the lesser structures at Ingapirca is the lack of definitive archaeological evidence that would confirm their specific use. Unlike El Castillo, which has been associated with solar worship, these smaller buildings lack clear markers of ritualistic or religious significance. While the walls are finely constructed, and the placement of certain stones indicates deliberate architectural decisions, no written records or obvious artifacts have been found that explain the site's full purpose. Some archaeologists have suggested that these structures could have been used for housing or storage, while others propose that they may have served as places for community gatherings or ceremonies. One of the most compelling theories about the lesser structures at Ingapirca involves the possibility of a spiritual or ceremonial function tied to the surrounding environment. The Cañari, like many pre-Columbian Andean cultures, had strong spiritual beliefs linked to the land and the natural world. Could these smaller structures have served as sites for rituals, where people communed with the land and its spiritual energies? The surrounding mountains, valleys, and rivers were considered sacred by many ancient cultures of the Andes. Could these stone buildings have been constructed as part of a larger, more intricate cosmology that connected the people to the sacred geography of their world? As we step back and consider the greater picture, it becomes clear that the lesser structures at Ingapirca remain an open question. Were they part of a larger, more complex site that served a social, political, or ceremonial role? Or did they represent something more personal, a reflection of the ways in which the people of this region connected with their environment and the forces that shaped their world? The lack of definitive answers only adds to the allure of Ingapirca's lesser structures, leaving us to wonder what other mysteries may still lie hidden beneath the surface. These structures are more than just relics of a bygone age. They are echoes of a civilization whose cultural, spiritual, and architectural innovations continue to challenge our understanding of the ancient world. As we continue to uncover more about Ingapirca, we are reminded that the full story of this site and the people who built it may never be entirely understood. What secrets remain buried in the stones, and what will future discoveries reveal about the lives of those who once lived here? Nestled in the coastal deserts of Peru, near the small town of Casma, lies one of the most intriguing and enigmatic archaeological sites in South America, Sechin Bajo. While the site is relatively unknown to the general public compared to its more famous neighbors like Machu Picchu or the Nazca Lines, it holds a profound mystery, a puzzle that challenges what we know about pre-Columbian civilization in the Andes. The site itself is a sprawling complex of massive stone platforms, temples, and walls that seem to stretch endlessly across the arid, windswept landscape. The construction is rudimentary yet impressive, with large, rough-hewn blocks of sandstone and mud brick arranged in vast geometric patterns. Some of the stones are so large that it is difficult to fathom how the ancient builders were able to move them with the limited technology they are believed to have had. The most striking feature of Sechin Bajo, however, is the sheer scale and complexity of its layout, structures that appear to have been built not for defensive purposes, but for something much deeper, more symbolic. Sechin Bajo dates back to at least 4,000 years ago, during a time when the region was inhabited by pre-Inca cultures. The site is often associated with the Sechin culture, a civilization that flourished in the Casma Valley long before the rise of the Inca Empire. Yet, despite extensive excavation and study, many questions remain unanswered. Why did the Sechin culture invest so much energy into creating such monumental structures in an environment that seems inhospitable to large-scale civilization? What was the purpose of Sechin Bajo, and who were the people who built it? What makes Sechin Bajo particularly fascinating is the combination of monumental architecture with enigmatic carvings and sculptures. Scattered across the site are reliefs of anthropomorphic figures, serpents, and abstract patterns, some of which seem to be repeated across different walls and platforms. The stone carvings are intricate, suggesting that the builders possessed a highly developed understanding of symbolism and art. Some of the figures appear to be stylized depictions of warriors or deities, their faces grim and almost menacing. Others seem to represent animals, particularly snakes, which were often associated with power and the underworld in Andean cultures. The presence of these symbols raises a crucial question. Were these structures and carvings intended for religious or ceremonial purposes? Despite the artistry of the site, there is little to suggest that Sechin Bajo was ever a thriving, populous city, unlike other ancient civilizations that left behind dense urban centers. Sechin Bajo seems to have been a ceremonial center, perhaps a place where rituals and spiritual practices took precedence over daily life. The vast emptiness surrounding the site, coupled with the absence of residential structures, only deepens the mystery. Were the people who built Sechin Bajo more interested in spiritual pursuits than in building a conventional city? Or perhaps they built the site for a purpose we have yet to understand. The layout of Sechin Bajo is another intriguing aspect of the site. It consists of a series of interconnected platforms, courtyards, and ceremonial spaces that radiate outward from a central focal point. Some archaeologists have suggested that these platforms were used for large-scale public gatherings, perhaps for religious rituals, dances, or feasts. Others have posited that the site may have functioned as a kind of astronomical observatory, with the structures aligning with celestial events such as solstices and equinoxes. This connection to the heavens would not be surprising, given the importance of celestial bodies in ancient Andean cosmology. If Sechin Bajo was indeed a center for astronomical observation, what knowledge did its inhabitants possess? And how might this knowledge have been passed down to future civilizations in the Andes? One of the most puzzling features of Sechin Bajo is the evidence of ritualistic violence. The site contains a series of carved stone reliefs that depict scenes of human sacrifice, figures with their arms bound, being led to altars where they are seemingly prepared for ritual slaughter. The symbolism of these carvings suggests that Sechin Bajo may have played a key role in the religious practices of the Sechin culture, with human sacrifice serving as an important component of their belief system. But what exactly motivated these practices? Was human sacrifice seen as a way to appease gods or spirits? Or was it an assertion of power, a means of demonstrating control over the forces of nature or over rival groups? In addition to these more tangible elements, there are also more speculative theories about the purpose of Sechin Bajo. Some suggest that the site could have been part of a larger network of ceremonial centers that stretched across the Andes, connecting different cultures and serving as a focal point for religious pilgrimage. Could Sechin Bajo have been a place of political or spiritual importance that drew people from distant regions to participate in its rituals? Others have proposed that Sechin Bajo may have had a more symbolic function, perhaps representing a microcosm of the world itself, a place where the forces of nature, life, and death were intertwined in a grand cosmic drama. If so, what did the people of Sechin Bajo believe about the universe, and how did they view their place within it? The mystery of Sechin Bajo deepens when we consider the possibility that the site may have been abandoned long before the Inca Empire rose to power in the Andes. Some archaeologists believe that Sechin Bajo may have been abandoned as early as 1000 BCE, leaving behind only the remnants of a once flourishing ceremonial center. If the site was indeed abandoned, what caused the collapse of the Sechin culture? Was it environmental factors, such as a prolonged drought, that led to the site's decline? Or was it the result of internal social or political upheaval? The lack of written records from the Sechin culture means that we can only speculate about the events that led to the site's abandonment. Furthermore, there is the question of the stonework itself. The sheer size of the stones used in Sechin Bajo's construction suggests that the builders had advanced knowledge of engineering and construction techniques. But how did they manage to move these massive blocks of stone? The traditional explanations point to the use of simple tools and labor-intensive methods, such as levers and ramps. Yet the scale of the site suggests that the construction process may have involved a level of coordination and planning far beyond what we would expect from a small, isolated culture. Could the builders of Sechin Bajo have possessed knowledge of advanced building techniques, possibly passed down from even earlier civilizations? Or were these techniques part of a lost tradition that we have yet to uncover? In the end, Sechin Bajo remains one of the great mysteries of the ancient world. Its vast geometric platforms and intricately carved reliefs speak to a culture that valued ritual, symbolism, and astronomical knowledge. But the absence of answers to the key questions surrounding the site, its purpose, its creators, and its eventual decline, keeps the mystery alive. What were the people of Sechin Bajo trying to communicate through their architecture and carvings? And what, if anything, does this site tell us about the rise and fall of civilizations in the Andes? Perhaps, as with so many ancient sites, Sechin Bajo will remain a silent testament to the unknown. What lies buried beneath its stone platforms and reliefs? And what might still be waiting to be discovered about the enigmatic people who once called this place home? Only time and further exploration will tell. The rugged island of Sardinia, with its towering cliffs and dense ancient forests, is home to some of the most mysterious and ancient sites in the Mediterranean. One such site is the Tomb of the Giants at Li Mizani, a monumental burial structure that has stood for millennia. Situated near the small village of Arzachena in northern Sardinia, the tomb's size and architecture speak to a long-lost culture with knowledge and skills far beyond what we would expect for its time. Yet, despite its prominence, the purpose and the people behind it remain shrouded in mystery. The Tomb of the Giants is not a singular structure, but a large collective burial site, one of many scattered across Sardinia. Its name, Limizani, translates to the Giants, a reference to the immense size of the tombs, which were often constructed in a way that suggests a larger-than-life reverence for the deceased. The tomb itself is a stone structure, shaped like a large, elongated corridor or chamber, with a massive capstone resting atop. The tomb's entrance is marked by a large, upright stone, which many believe symbolized an entrance to another world, a threshold between the living and the dead. The most striking feature of the Tomb of the Giants at Limizani is its sheer size. The burial chamber is enclosed by a stone structure, with walls reaching several meters in height. Inside, the burial space is often aligned with a long, narrow corridor, which leads to the central chamber. The walls are constructed from large, carefully placed stones, and the entire tomb is meticulously organized, showcasing a level of architectural sophistication that has puzzled researchers for decades. But who were these giants, and what did the tomb signify? The tomb itself dates back to the Bronze Age, somewhere around 1500 BCE, though the specific culture responsible for its construction remains a subject of debate. Most archaeologists agree that it was built by the Nuraghe civilization, an ancient people whose exact origins and customs are still not fully understood. The Nuraghe culture is known for its unique tower-like structures, called nuraghes, which are scattered throughout Sardinia. These megalithic structures, often thought to have served as both defensive fortresses and religious temples, point to a people with advanced engineering and social organization. But while the Nuraghes are relatively well understood, the purpose of the Tomb of the Giants remains elusive. Scholars generally agree that the tomb was used for collective burial, but beyond this, little is known about its deeper significance. Some believe the site had religious or ritualistic purposes, perhaps serving as a place for ancestor worship or a way to honor important leaders or figures from the community. The size and careful construction of the tomb suggest that it was intended for more than just everyday people. It likely housed the remains of prominent individuals, perhaps chiefs, priests, or warriors. However, there are no definitive inscriptions or written records that might shed light on the specific identity or status of those interred within. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Tomb of the Giants at Limizani is the presence of large stone sculptures that line the entrance, known as statuettes or sippi. These statues, often depicting human figures or animals, are thought to represent the deceased or their spiritual guardians. The stone's faces are usually carved with exaggerated features, large, powerful eyes, and strong facial features that seem to convey a sense of power, authority, or spiritual potency. These figures have sparked speculation about the beliefs of the Nuraghe people. Were the giants meant to protect the dead, or were they representations of gods or ancestors? And why were they depicted so much larger than life? Could these carvings be part of a larger tradition of ancestor worship, or were they symbolic of something more abstract, perhaps an idealized view of the afterlife? Interestingly, some researchers have proposed that the Tomb of the Giants may have served a dual purpose. While it may have been a burial site for the powerful elite, it could have also played a role in community rituals, with the tomb serving as a focal point for gatherings or ceremonies. The tomb's central corridor, which aligns with the landscape, hints at a possible connection to celestial or natural cycles, and some archaeologists have speculated that it could have been used for astronomical or seasonal rituals. The positioning of the tomb could suggest an awareness of the movement of the sun or stars, which would not be surprising given the advanced understanding of the natural world demonstrated by the Nuraghe people. There are also more speculative theories about the Tomb of the Giants at Limizani, many of which remain controversial. Some fringe theories suggest that the site, along with other tombs like it, may have been built by a lost civilization, one that predated the Nuraghic people. Proponents of this idea argue that the size and precision of the tomb's construction, as well as the presence of symbolic carvings, are evidence of a culture that had knowledge beyond what is thought to have been available at the time. Could the tombs have been built by an even older, more advanced society? One that possessed techniques or knowledge that were later lost? Or could the site be linked to an entirely different tradition, one that was in contact with far-reaching ancient cultures? Adding to the mystery is the fact that the tomb's construction method is not entirely understood. The megalithic stones used to build the structure are enormous, and moving them would have required an immense amount of labor and technological ingenuity. Some archaeologists believe that the Nuraghic people had the ability to shape and transport these stones using rudimentary tools, while others suggest that the construction techniques used in the Tomb of the Giants may have been passed down from even earlier cultures. If these methods were lost or forgotten after the fall of the Nuraghic civilization, it could help explain why similar structures are not found elsewhere in the Mediterranean. Despite the wealth of unanswered questions, there is one aspect of the Tomb of the Giants at Limizani that stands out above all else: the feeling it evokes. The grand scale of the tomb, its enigmatic carvings, and the imposing presence of the stone guardians create an atmosphere of awe and reverence, even thousands of years after it was built. The tomb seems to hold a kind of ancient power, a deep connection to a past that still resonates today. What does it all mean? Were the giants merely the powerful leaders of a long-forgotten civilization, or were they symbolic figures, gods or ancestors meant to guide the dead on their journey to the afterlife? The tomb's scale and deliberate construction suggest a culture with sophisticated religious beliefs, but the absence of clear answers leaves much open to speculation. What, if anything, can we learn from these silent stone walls and towering statues? Could the secrets of the Tomb of the Giants, like so many others, remain hidden beneath the weight of time, waiting to be discovered by those who dare to look deeper? Only time will tell, but for now, the mystery remains unresolved. On the sun-baked hills of central Sardinia, surrounded by an expansive landscape of ancient olive groves and wildflowers, lies one of the most imposing and mysterious structures of the island, Nuraghe Losa. Part of the intricate web of megalithic sites scattered across Sardinia, Nuraghe Losa stands as a testament to the ancient Nuraghic civilization, whose true origins, purpose, and even cultural identity remain enigmatic to this day. The site consists of a towering stone structure, often described as a nuraghe, a term used to refer to the distinctive tower-like edifices built by the Nuraghic people around 1500 BCE. At first glance, the structure resembles a simple yet monumental fortress, rising above the arid landscape. Its walls are constructed from massive blocks of limestone, tightly fitted together with an engineering precision that still leaves modern archaeologists scratching their heads. The central tower, or mastio, is the most striking feature, a truncated cone of stones that tapers slightly as it rises, a defining characteristic of the Nuraghic architectural style. Surrounding the central tower are several smaller chambers, corridors, and additional structures, suggesting that this was not merely a defensive outpost, but rather a multifunctional site, with both ceremonial and domestic roles. At Nuraghe Losa, the mystery deepens when you step inside. The labyrinthine layout of the site, a series of interlocking rooms and narrow passageways, gives the sense of a place designed for more than just habitation. The main tower is connected to a series of other structures, including smaller towers and a wall that encircles the central complex, leading some archaeologists to believe that the entire site may have served as a kind of fortress or settlement. The absence of any significant evidence of defensive warfare at the site, however, raises questions. Was this structure truly a fortress? Or was its purpose more symbolic, a place of power and governance? Perhaps the most puzzling aspect of Nuraghe Losa is the sheer scale and complexity of its construction. The stone blocks used to build the tower are immense, with some weighing several tons. Moving and shaping these blocks with the tools and technology available during the Bronze Age would have been an incredible feat. The precision of the masonry, with the blocks fitting together so tightly that even a knife blade cannot be inserted between them, points to a level of engineering expertise that seems out of place for a people thought to have had relatively simple tools. Some theorists suggest that the builders of the Nuraghe structures may have had access to lost techniques or even external knowledge that has been lost to time. Could the construction of these monumental sites be evidence of a civilization that was far more advanced than we give it credit for? Or were the Nuraghic people simply incredibly resourceful, using basic tools and innovative methods to accomplish the impossible? As you wander the site, it becomes clear that Nuraghe Losa was built with an intention far beyond mere functionality. Its layout is meticulously planned, with a clear understanding of space, light, and acoustics. The chambers within the central tower are not random. They appear to have been designed to create a specific effect, with natural light filtering through the structure in a way that suggests a connection to the cosmos. One theory posits that the site was designed to mark celestial events, such as solstices and equinoxes. Some scholars believe that the orientation of the tower and its surrounding structures may have been intended to align with certain astronomical phenomena, pointing to a sophisticated understanding of the heavens. If this was the case, it would suggest that the Nuraghic people were not just builders, but also keen astronomers, deeply attuned to the rhythms of the sky. Another curious feature of Nuraghe Losa is the presence of a series of small stone niches and altars scattered throughout the complex. These have led some researchers to speculate that the site was used for ritual purposes, perhaps as a place of worship or a sanctuary for the gods. The layout and the presence of these niches are reminiscent of other ancient sacred spaces, where rituals and offerings were made to deities, ancestors, or celestial beings. The question, of course, is which gods or spirits the Nuraghic people revered. There are no written records from the Nuraghic civilization, leaving us with only the material evidence and the surviving traditions of later cultures to speculate upon. Were the worshippers of Nuraghe Losa drawn to the site by its alignment with the stars? Or did they seek to commune with forces believed to be present in the earth itself? Despite extensive research, there is little consensus on the purpose of the Nuraghe structures in general. While many believe that they served as fortifications, others argue that they were primarily religious or ceremonial sites. Some even suggest that they were symbols of social status and power, built to assert the authority of the elite within the community. Yet, given the scale and complexity of the structures, there remains the possibility that they served multiple functions, part fortress, part temple, part residence. The lack of definitive answers only adds to the allure of Nuraghe Losa and its many counterparts scattered across Sardinia. Adding to the intrigue are the occasional, almost inexplicable features found at Nuraghe Losa. For instance, some stones within the structure exhibit what appear to be carvings, abstract symbols, spirals, and geometric patterns that do not correspond to known scripts or languages. Were these symbols part of a writing system, perhaps a form of proto-writing that predated the arrival of written language in the Mediterranean? Or were they purely decorative, part of a broader tradition of symbolic expression tied to the spiritual or social practices of the Nuraghic people? Furthermore, the exact dating of the site remains an area of uncertainty. While most scholars agree that Nuraghe Losa was constructed during the mid to late Bronze Age, some have proposed that it may have been built even earlier, potentially predating other well-known civilizations in the Mediterranean region. If the site's construction indeed dates back further than traditionally believed, it raises the tantalizing possibility that the Nuraghic civilization was more ancient and perhaps more influential than we currently understand. One of the most fascinating aspects of Nuraghe Losa is how it invites us to look beyond the conventional boundaries of ancient history. The complexity and sophistication of its construction challenge our assumptions about the technological capabilities of ancient peoples. The mysterious symbols, the strategic alignment of the towers, and the possibility of astronomical knowledge all point to a people with a deeper understanding of the world around them, one that we are only beginning to grasp. But, as with so many ancient structures, the answers to the questions surrounding Nuraghe Losa may never come fully into focus. Could it have been a place of worship, of governance, or something entirely different? Were the builders of Nuraghe Losa attempting to communicate something to the future? And if so, what exactly were they trying to say? As we gaze upon the silent, weathered stones of this ancient tower, one thing becomes clear. The secrets of Nuraghe Losa, like so many ancient wonders, may remain locked away, hidden beneath the weight of time. But the allure of these mysteries, the questions they pose, and the possibilities they suggest continue to beckon those who seek to understand the lost civilizations of our past. What knowledge, buried beneath the stones, remains to be uncovered? Only time will tell. The Dolmen of Menga, nestled in the heart of Andalusia, Spain, stands as a colossal testament to an ancient world long forgotten. Its massive stones, weathered by millennia of sun and rain, rise like silent sentinels from the earth, their purpose and meaning still veiled in mystery. This megalithic structure, part of a group of ancient burial sites known as the Antequera Dolmens, has intrigued archaeologists and historians for centuries. Yet, despite extensive research and excavation, many of its secrets remain unsolved. The Dolmen of Menga is an imposing sight. A massive stone burial chamber, it consists of several large slabs of stone arranged to form a roofed structure, resembling an elongated rectangular building. The capstone, weighing several hundred tons, is placed atop vertical stones, creating a roof-like effect that has withstood the ravages of time. The entire structure is enclosed within a mound of earth, a tumulus that once protected the sacred site from the elements, and perhaps from prying eyes. The sheer size and scale of the dolmen are awe-inspiring, especially when one considers the tools and techniques available to its builders during the late Neolithic, around 3,500 BCE. Standing before the Dolmen of Menga today, it is impossible not to feel a sense of wonder and intrigue. How was it possible for ancient peoples to transport and position these enormous stones without the aid of modern machinery? What drove them to build such a monumental structure in the first place? And perhaps most curiously, why did they bury their dead in such an extraordinary way? According to mainstream scholarship, the Dolmen of Menga was primarily used as a collective burial site. The structure was likely intended to house the remains of high-status individuals or important community leaders. Within its stone chambers, archaeologists have found evidence of human bones, as well as various grave goods, including pottery and tools. This suggests that the dolmen was not only a tomb, but also a place of ritual significance, where ceremonies and offerings may have been made to honor the deceased, and perhaps even to ensure their safe passage into the afterlife. The size and scale of the dolmen, however, raise questions that go beyond the conventional understanding of burial practices. Why build such an enormous structure for what was, presumably, a relatively small number of individuals? Why invest so much time, effort, and resources into the construction of a tomb that would only house a few bodies? These questions have led some researchers to propose that the dolmen may have served a purpose beyond simply marking the resting place of the dead. Was it a focal point for religious rituals? a place where the living came to commune with the spirits of their ancestors? Was the structure intended to symbolize the power and influence of a particular group or leader? The sheer scale of the Dolmen of Menga also hints at a level of social organization and engineering that is difficult to reconcile with what we know about Neolithic societies. The megalithic stones, each weighing several tons, were carefully quarried, transported, and arranged with remarkable precision. How did the builders manage to lift and position such massive stones? Was there a sophisticated system of levers, ramps, or pulleys in place, or were more ingenious methods used? Some suggest that the construction of the dolmen may have involved advanced knowledge of geometry and engineering, perhaps passed down from even older, now lost civilizations. Could the builders have had access to techniques that were far beyond what we typically associate with their time? Despite the impressive engineering feats of the Dolmen of Menga, the most mysterious aspect of the structure may lie in its alignment. The dolmen is oriented to face the rising sun, which aligns with the horizon during the spring and autumn equinoxes. This astronomical alignment suggests that the builders had a sophisticated understanding of the movements of the sun and the changing seasons. Could the dolmen have had an additional role as an astronomical observatory, a tool for tracking celestial events? This theory is bolstered by the presence of other megalithic sites in the region, such as the nearby Dolmen of Vera, which also appear to align with solar events. Was the Dolmen of Menga part of a broader network of ancient observatories designed to mark the passage of time and the cycles of the earth and sky? There are also intriguing theories that the dolmen's purpose was more symbolic than practical. Some researchers have suggested that the dolmen was a representation of the cosmos, a model of the world that the builders believed existed beyond the physical realm. According to this theory, the stones and their arrangement might have been designed to symbolize the intersection of the earthly and divine realms, perhaps acting as a portal between the two worlds. The burial chamber, with its dark, enclosed space, could represent the underworld or the afterlife, while the open expanse of the tumulus and the alignment with the sun may have symbolized the world of the living and the ever-present cycle of life and death. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Dolmen of Menga is the possibility that it was built by a culture whose knowledge and traditions have since been lost to time. Some theorists propose that the builders of the dolmen were part of a forgotten civilization, one that possessed advanced architectural and astronomical knowledge far beyond what we typically attribute to Neolithic peoples. Could the dolmen have been constructed by a people who had contact with other ancient cultures, such as those of the Mediterranean or the Near East? Were there shared knowledge and traditions that have left their mark on both the builders of the Dolmen of Menga and the creators of similar megalithic structures found in other parts of the world? Adding to the mystery are the questions surrounding the people who actually constructed the Dolmen of Menga. While it is generally agreed that the dolmen was built by prehistoric communities in the region, very little is known about the specific culture responsible. Archaeologists have suggested that the builders were part of a larger network of Neolithic farmers who settled in the Iberian Peninsula. Yet, despite the extensive study of the surrounding area, no clear evidence of the builders' identity or social structure has emerged. Could the dolmen have been the work of a group with a distinct, now lost culture, one whose legacy is embedded in the stones themselves? And then there is the matter of the surrounding landscape. The Dolmen of Menga is part of a larger megalithic complex in the Antequera region, which includes other tombs, standing stones, and enigmatic monuments. The proximity of these structures suggests that the area was of significant importance to the ancient people who lived here. Were the dolmens part of a larger ritual landscape, one that was used for gatherings, ceremonies, or even political purposes? If so, what did these people believe, and what drove them to construct such grand and mysterious structures? As the centuries pass, the Dolmen of Menga remains a silent witness to an ancient world that has long since faded into history. Its massive stones, perfectly arranged and aligned with the cycles of the sun, continue to hold their secrets, offering us only fleeting glimpses into the minds of the people who built it. What did they believe, and how did they understand their place in the world? The answers may never fully be known, but the questions they leave behind continue to intrigue, inviting us to explore the hidden mysteries of a distant past. What knowledge might still lie beneath the stone, waiting to be uncovered? Only time will tell.